Call the meeting to order. North Reading School Committee, June 10th, 2013. First order of business, public input. Is there anybody in the audience who would like to speak to us? Seeing no one for public input. Next, and I'm surprised, I thought our student reports were done for the year, but we have Matt Layton because we have 9 more days of school or something like that, right? Or 11.
I've lost count.
Something like that.
I'm just ready for school to be done, to be honest with you.
Matt?
He's the last one.
Last one?
Yes.
Okay.
There's one more, actually.
But that's right, we are going to have one more. Jackie Lanzaro is coming. Thank you, Matt.
On the 24th.
You're welcome.
Yes,
on the
we
24th.
met today.
So it's been a lot going on in the past few weeks at the high school. Starting with this past Friday was graduation, which was held in the gymnasium due to the rainy weather. There were 159 graduates who received their diplomas. Following the graduation was the all-night party, and I'm not sure where it was held, but I think it was a boat cruise of some sort. Last Monday was senior prom, held at the Westin Hotel in Waltham. Those who attended, I heard it was very, very well. Everyone had a great time, no incidents to report.
That's what we like.
That's
to hear.
always
right,
Thank
exactly.
you so much.
That's all we care about.
No incidents is always a
No
good thing to hear.
incidents, yes. Despite the rainy weather early in the day, the Grand March was held at Ipswich River Park. Last Tuesday night was Sports Awards for all spring athletes. Last Wednesday, the senior class had their Hawaiian luau party and yearbook signing in the cafeteria. Also last Tuesday and Wednesday, the freshman students were administered their biology MCAS test. Going back 2 weeks, on Wednesday, May 22nd, the senior art show and the spring concert were held at the high school. The following day, on the 23rd, Spring Student Recognition Night was also held in the auditorium. Last Wednesday, class officer elections were held. Students had the option of voting by text message or traditional ballot, so that's the first time we did that. No
Very good.
test pilot for this year, and they hope to do it next year as well. The results for that, for my class 2014 seniors, President is Maddie Capizzuto, Vice President Christina Fusco, Secretary will be Olivia DeMichael, and Treasurer Lauren Jabaya. For the class of
There's
20...
no boys in
They
the
didn't
school
look-
anymore.
There
are
are
there?
not, no.
All right.
They do a very good
Jerry,
job, though.
No
It's what we
comment.
thought, right?
Huh?
What we thought, yes.
We're done.
It's all about empowerment.
All right. I'm sorry to interrupt. but
That's fine.
At the SAS the other night, there were
Right.
five girls.
Yeah.
6.
6 girls.
Six.
All right, good.
So for the continuing the class of 2015, President is Matthew Stead, Vice President Jackie Lanzaro, Secretaries Peyton Conway Baker, and Treasurer is Cole Hughes. For the class of 2016, President Nicholas O'Connell, Vice President Jillian Camo, Secretary is Alexa Capozzoli, and Treasurer is Nicholas Day. Switching gears to sports right now, all spring teams are unfortunately done for the season, starting with the baseball team who lost last Tuesday against Newburyport 0-4. They did have an excellent season, though, going 19-3 for the season and finishing first in the division. Last Tuesday, the boys tennis team season came to an end with a 1-4 loss against Weston. We also had an excellent season going 12-2, finishing second in our division. On May 30th, the boys lacrosse team season came to a close as well, losing 9-10 in a close battle against Hanover. The team had a 15-7 record. And the softball team also had a game on the 30th, losing 2-5 against Reading to finish their season off. They had also had a very good season, finishing first in the Cal 1 division with a record of 16-6. On Friday the 31st, many students took part in the Relay for Life. Candidates for school committee representatives are due, paperwork is due on Wednesday, with elections taking place next Tuesday. And finally, final exams for underclassmen will begin on Wednesday and last until Monday the 24th. There will be half days during the exam period, and then we get out the 25th. And for student work, I unfortunately don't have any. All my teachers are keeping it.
It's the end of the year.
It's the end of the year. They're all catching up.
Wouldn't
with
expect you to have
grading.
any work at this time.
Yeah.
Right? No, because the extra days, we should have been out by now, shouldn't we have? Almost.
His teachers have kept them for the end of the year grading.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, Madam Superintendent.
They actually are working.
They are.
It's just,
Well, thanks.
that was a busy week, too. Huh?
It was.
It was.
Very
Yeah.
busy. Because the sports teams had great seasons, but a little disappointing in the playoffs. I know a couple of the teams had hoped to go a little bit farther. But they all had great seasons.
Right,
So
very good.
overall, I think it was one of the best spring sports seasons in North Reading High School history. If you look at our our winning percentage was almost 700%.
Yeah.
So,
I think it was one of the best years for sports in North Reading, really, going
Correct.
all the way back to the fall season, the winter season, so.
I also wanted to just add my and the committee's congratulations to all the graduates. I'm looking forward to their success in college as they move on.
Mhm.
It was a little warm in the gym, but it wasn't as bad as it could have been.
Yeah.
But it's always better to have it outside. But I think we did pretty well, given that such cramped quarters. We were able to fit most people in, and we had a full auditorium also
Yes, we did.
for the. We showed it on the big screen in the auditorium. So
Yeah, they did a great job hooking
Right.
everything up, and it
They
was,
really
I
did.
think, everyone was satisfied.
Yeah. Any questions for Matt?
I have a question. How do you do the text sort of polling voting? What do you use?
Well, what I saw is there's a website you can register on. So the student council advisor, Ms. Sander, set up it, and they give you a code to enter for each candidate you want to text. So you text that
Oh.
code to a number, and brings in real-time updates. So as each person sends a text, it shows
How many times can you vote?
only once.
Oh.
And how did they track that?
They had a graph of some sort. I'm not sure. I think she went back after all the speeches were done and looked at who voted how many times. So I think when you vote, each number comes up. So if there was more than one, she could delete it
Oh,
off.
so you're giving the code, and that code
Yes.
can only vote
Yes.
one time. Okay.
Neat.
That makes
Yes,
sense.
it's very
That's
neat.
good. That's good. All right. Well, have a great summer, Matt.
Disenfranchised.
You as well.
We see you back next year. Are you already?
Yes,
You don't
yep,
have to
I'm
run
up to-
for
no, I
re-election
don't.
again. Okay.
So-
So we'll see you in the fall.
We will. All
Great.
right,
Thank you,
excellent.
Matt.
Thank you.
Good luck the rest of the year.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, next we have a couple representatives from Chartwell. And they and Mr. Nelson are going to talk to us about the lunch program and hopefully help us figure out some ways to get more kids to buy lunch.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We'll be showing a PowerPoint in a couple minutes. But I'd like to welcome our food service director, Anna McGovern, as well as, I'll take care of that for you. Okay, thank you. As well as Chris Callahan, the regional manager. Their visit is timely. As you may remember, we had a discussion at the school committee meeting probably 4 weeks ago, where I shared with the committee some of the unfortunate declines that we're experiencing in the school lunch program. And at that time, the committee suggested that we engage ourselves in a discussion with our representatives to see what kinds of things have been done this year and what kinds of things need to be done next year to try to ameliorate the declines that we're facing. In context, I just wanted to share the fact that in discussions with other business officials across the state, and I think Chris and Anna will confirm this, the issues that we're dealing with here in North Reading are very similar to the issues that most districts across the state are experiencing. In fact, the districts that have the lowest percentages of free and reduced lunch, such as North Reading, appear to be the districts that are confronting the most problems, because those free and reduced lunch meals are guaranteed. Regardless, the communities, the urban districts, communities that have higher percentages are not hurting as badly as we are. So this is not necessarily just a local problem. In the discussions that we've had here in North Reading, as well as with our representatives, and we've had many forums recently where we've discussed some of the problems, it appears that we've narrowed the reasons for the decline to three principal major problems. And they begin with the nutritional guidelines that we've discussed here at some length. I would remind the committee and the public that those nutritional guidelines are really state guidelines. The federal guidelines that went into place, we were close to conforming to already, and it was really the state guidelines that kind of squeezed the situation, so to speak, and narrowed our choices. So the nutritional guidelines, frankly, have not met with universal acceptance by our student body. So that leads the league, so to speak, in what our issues have been. Secondly, we have a fairly large reduction in the number of lunch days that we provide lunch to now. We've changed our professional development options so that we are not serving lunch on professional development days. As recently as a few years ago, even during the so-called half-day Wednesday schedule that we had several years ago, we did keep kids for lunch. So the number of lunch days lost in the last 2 years is over 30. So what that means is there are 30 less opportunities to serve lunch, and that brings the numbers down.
I was actually, and I was going to save this for the elementary school teachers later. I probably should have known this, but I was actually shocked to see the number of half days. I know we're teaching enough hours to comply with the state. I know that's not an issue there, but I was shocked to see how many half days we now have. So I can see that as being an issue.
Well, I really want to emphasize that in no way is an indictment of those days,
No.
but rather just one of the factors that you have to consider as you're looking at the issue. And then thirdly, particularly at the elementary school, enrollment's declining. It's clearly enrollment decline. So as you go from year to year, you're seeing a decline. So those are three of the principal issues that I think help explain why we have this decline. And as we put together the FY14 budget, we are understanding that the dollars that is required from the general fund is going to have to be increased significantly to help keep the lunch program in the red, in the black.
We can keep it in the red. Yeah. We're doing a good job of that on our own. Carl, one question on the elementary enrollment, which would be another question for the elementary principals tonight. But do we get a higher percentage of elementary students buying lunches than we do at the middle school and high school, or?
I believe not. Anna, can you answer that question in general
Yes.
terms?
No, our elementary participation is lower
Okay.
than the middle and the high school,
Oh.
because it's much more controlled.
Oh, right, because they don't have the choices, right?
Exactly,
Right.
it's more controlled.
Yeah, okay.
As this year has progressed, I do want to compliment Anna and Chris on the amount of time they've spent to try to engage this problem. I have a list of the 10 things we've done this year, but I think some of those are going to appear in the PowerPoint, so I'll let it go. But I'm very pleased at the amount of cooperation that we've received from our representatives here to try to work the problem through. The bad news here is it is likely that we are facing some kind of labor hour reduction next year if we want to keep our deficit in check. That's not necessary, but as enrollments, as school lunch participation declines, we begin to have to look at labor. There have been a lot of cutbacks already. The two expenses in food service are labor and food. So there's been a proportionate reduction in our food costs, but we haven't really looked at the labor side, and that's a little more difficult. So that's one of the things that Anna and Chris are discussing with us, and we need to consider that as one of our options to some extent. So with that, I'd like to turn the discussion over to Chris and Anna.
Thank you, Carl. I can't tell you how many school committee meetings I've been to, kind of reviewing this. Actually, it's more of a perfect storm, per se, this year. It's been a very challenging year all over Massachusetts, all over actually the country. And in Massachusetts specifically, you've got the requirements, as Carl mentioned, you have the meal requirements restrictions, as well as the a la carte restrictions. With most other states didn't do that, they adopted the meals this year. So having both a la carte and meals really kind of crippled some of the revenue generators in most programs.
Please explain what the a la carte is.
A la carte is basically anything, say a student comes in and they have a lunch and they want to get a sport drink to go with the lunch. They can't get the sport drink anymore because it's an a la carte beverage and it doesn't meet the requirements of the nutrition requirements. So the a la carte is more the side items, menu items that they can get purchased with a meal. They're very, very restricted. So, for example, for beverages, we can only serve water, 4-ounce juice, and milk. Where previous years we were able to serve, the healthier sport drinks and the vitamin waters, and which are not allowed anymore. So that in combination with the meal requirements really hurt most districts this year.
You said a 4-ounce juice?
Yeah.
That's a real thirst quencher.
Yeah. So we'll go over that a little bit.
That's part of a lunch. Sometimes that's part of a
Yeah.
lunch.
I know, but 4 ounces?
Right, that's part of a component to a lunch sometimes, so
Yeah.
when they have a breakfast for lunch and they have a 4-ounce juice as part of a component, now a week later I'm gonna sell them that, it doesn't make
Right.
sense. I mean, we have to do what's right for them. They know,
Yeah.
they're our customer, they're our sales, and,
Yeah.
you know, they don't wanna buy that.
Right.
So, that along with the decline in enrollment and the service days, you know, it's really been a challenge. But we'll go through some of our initiatives, accomplishments that we've done this year, try to combat that, some of our program challenges, as well as our initiatives for next year to keep on reducing, you know, that program deficits and growing program revenues where we can. So I'll have Anna go over there's a few initiatives that we started at the beginning of the year, knowing that we were going into this tidal wave of change in the fall. We've been working on it for the last 2-3 years to prepare ourselves for the meal portion, but we really didn't have an idea what the impact would be until it really hit us. So Anna, why don't you go through some of the...
The first one is we did promote the new point of sale and the online resources for the parents. They could go online, they can see what their children's purchasing, what they're purchasing as far as if it's an a la carte or it's a lunch. We send out weekly emails to make sure that if their children's account goes into arrears, that they can automatically fund their account or send in a check. So right now, we're very happy at this point in time, what the students owe is between $400 and $450 district-wide.
Wow.
That's very low.
Yes.
Considering what I hear other districts owe. So we are working on that, and that's really an effort to the cashiers online also.
Especially
Staff is
the
wonderful.
POS also increases speed flow. So the lines are a lot quicker now if they have that money in account. So that's helped out line flow.
So in September, there were the new USDA regulations. We're part of the National School Lunch Program, and we have to go by those regulations. We trained the staff. The staff it was tough to train the staff, but they were very receptive and they want to do it right. So there's all different ways that we have to serve it and present it. So we did that, and then in October, we had a certification week. And we sent those menus and all the production records to the state. Only 25% of the school districts were to be audited, and North Reading was chosen, of course. It was one of the first ones. And they came in, and needless to say, we passed. That was for an additional 6 cents per meal. People don't think that 6 cents per meal is big, but it comes to about $900,000 a month for us.
Wow.
And I think it's what was well worth it. Plus, we have to do it anyway. In October, we had a Fresh Eyes tour. That is an extensive review of our program. We had other directors come in. We had the regional vice president come in. Carl Nelson was also here. The biggest concern to me was the amount of brown bags. And they all sat with children at the tables. Geez, what do you like this? What do you like that? What do you like? The biggest thing is they wanted chicken nuggets and French toast. They like their breakfast for lunch and chicken nuggets and pizza.
And it's unique too. I mean, some communities, they're used to having lunches made at home. So that's kind of a habit that has probably been growing through their elementary years into their secondary years. So it was unique. It's unique.
In the high
That's
school,
right.
I did ask, so how can you bring your lunch every day? Oh, my mother makes it for me every day, so why wouldn't I bring it? So I said, would you make your own? No. So, they're lucky, they're fortunate. That's wonderful to have parent involvement. On December 3rd, we did do a presentation here for you, and we showed you all of the new requirements, and you enjoyed some of our lunches and some of our food that we offer.
I apologize, we didn't bring any tonight.
I was gonna say, you showed up
I
with
know.
no food. I can't
But we do
believe
have
it.
a couple more chocolate marshmallows.
Sean Colleen offered that.
That's right, yeah.
His culinary expertise.
Tell you what, it made your last presentation a lot more interesting. It really did.
But superintendent did visit today.
I
at
did.
the high school, and actually saw probably very similar what we had that night at the high school.
It looked delicious. But there were a lot of brown bags at the tables.
Yeah. It's just we've got to keep battling that.
In December, we did an iPod survey with the students, and they were also very receptive. We had a table with prizes, of course, if they participated, and again, it was, what's your favorite lunch? What would you like to see? What don't you like at school lunch? And they were all basically, we want more calzones. We had to stop the calzone that we were serving because it was much too large of a portion. There was too much dough, there was too much grain, it was just too big. So we stopped it. We brought it back though on their request.
Yeah.
So we've done that again. And
That was a regulation change, and I think we reviewed it last time, where they had really restrict regulations on the size, portion size for breads, grains, and proteins. They've since relaxed that, since they've noticed it was a real big problem across the country.
Mhm.
So, and that has been permanent now. So we can go back to serving the portion size that the kids were used to. So that's helped a bit. So. Yeah.
that has, but I don't think we'll ever go back to that size scale zone. That was so. And then we developed a new food service website in January with ongoing improvements. It's easy to find when they go on the website. They can see, they can go to Chartwell's Dining, the menus are on there, little food facts and whatever. So that's just an ongoing, when I have some information, we try to post that up there.
And we have actually, okay.
Yep, I have that.
Okay, Anna did go over that, we did pass the certification audit in March, so that was a very good, yeah.
When they came in audit, in March, they came to audit, they went over every menu for every grade group. I have to have 3 menus now, elementary, middle, and high school. And she went over every menu for every grade group, and then every school line by line. And in one school, she said, oh, they don't have broccoli listed. But she saw it at the top, and she saw it at the menu, and she saw the other 4 schools had it, and she saw the production records. So she said, okay, then I'm just gonna say that they just didn't write it in. So that's how detailed they were. And I was pleased because the staff was awesome. I had to provide 4 weeks of menus, including a certification week, and the staff really did well.
We actually really prepared in August to make sure that month would be, spotless and clean. So our dietitian really spent a lot of time here as well to prepare for that audit. And the nice thing about it is that once you're audited, now we're going to be audited for a while. But the people who actually didn't get audited and didn't complete this will be at top of the list next year. So we're good next year.
Only 33% of the states, only 33% of school districts in the state of Massachusetts actually applied and were approved. We did some PTO meetings to just gain parent input. In May, I attended What's the Scoop on the Middle School Lunch, and we invited the 5th grade parents for incoming middle school students. It wasn't the attendance wasn't that great, but there were a lot of questions. Again, I offered the lunch that was served that day, which was the chicken fajitas, and where did you get these peppers? Where did you get these onions? I said, they're made on site. They don't understand that, so. So that was good to know. The
key is to try to get them to see, what we're serving for lunch, so that, that maybe, they'll feel confident that, what we have at lunch is very healthy and very reasonably priced, so that they won't have to pack the lunch at home. So.
When we try something new on the menu, we try to do it a week before. We offer samplings, little 2-ounce cups. Try it, take it, you'll know it's coming up. Again, we provided training. We have a lot of people that needed recertification to serve safe. We got that set up after all in the school education. We keep that going.
Wellness committee meetings.
And
committees.
oh yeah, that's true. That's right. The wellness committee. I'm a member of the wellness committee, and that's with we revamping that to get that up again, so that North Reading is right on target with all of those. And then lastly, we presented a scholarship to, $1,000 scholarship to graduating senior Tom Potter. He's a really nice boy, and he's going to Lowell.
Yep.
And so he was really happy about that, and that was just the other day.
You buy his lunch every day?
He buys lunch every single day.
Okay,
That's
I
why
was
I
wondering, I
You
got
know
the
what?
scholarship.
You know what? I printed out his report, there were 8 pages. He
Really?
buys lunch every
Well,
single
that's
day.
well
And he
deserved.
never owes us money.
This is just the iPod survey we did at the high school. Again, it's a 1-minute survey for the kids to fill out, and they can fill it out really quickly. And they had a really good, constructive questionnaire to give us really some positive feedback and what we needed to take a look at, and what some of their interests and some of the things they don't like. We also kind of asked them about the new regulations and what they knew about them, to help them educate them about the new regulations and what it's all about. So it was a good survey spent. We plan to do it again next year. This is just the school committee meeting that we did at the beginning of the year.
What our lunch lines look
Yeah.
like, so
Carl had mentioned most of this as already, but again, these are our challenges, the basic challenges we face here in North Reading, the regulations, the declining enrollment trend, and the decreased days lunch can be served. And again, average serving days, most schools that you serve lunch is 175 to 180. So that makes a difference, especially in your overhead and your your economy of scale.
One of the unusual outcomes of 5 snow days this year
Right.
were that we lost 5 lunch days for seniors.
True, that's right.
Right.
It's kind of an unusual
Yeah.
outcome.
Just some facts here. Again, regulations, the impact of meal revenue, meal regulations, a drop in paid meals, as Carl mentioned, impacted about $80,000 this year. A la carte is down 40% from prior year. Most districts are actually down anywhere from 40 to 50%. So even though we weren't as high, that's a big impact for us, the size district, $50,000 in revenue that we lost because of the a la carte regulations. Now the increase in cost is interesting for new regulations. They estimated that the cost was going to be 6 to 8 cents or 6 to 10 cents. That's why they gave us the extra 6 cents funding for that certification. It's actually worked out to be about 12 cents here, and it's in my area it's ranging anywhere from 12 cents to 20 cents a meal extra for the new regulations and portion size. So in North Reading it's about $15,000 to $20,000 impact.
I'm really shocked because the federal and state governments are usually right on the money with those projections, and they always fund all of their mandates. So I'm kind of shocked about that. Isn't that shocking?
Free world.
Yeah, but some statistics there too. Again, I'm seeing, as Carl mentioned, paid meals is the statistic that most districts are down in.
Wow.
And the less more paid meals you have, the more of an impact your district's going to have on the regulations. And I talked about the average increase in food costs as well.
Just on that, so what, paid meals down $80,000. What's the total, out of what total from, that? So that's down from last year. What's the total spent in a year?
Total
Yeah.
revenue.
Total
for meals?
revenue of,
Yeah.
total paid meals, I guess, in a school year.
I want to say our best year, which was what we call the half-day Wednesdays year,
Yeah.
Right.
best year from a meal service perspective, our gross revenues were about $500,000.
Right.
So that's a pretty big drop then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're talking 15%, maybe more.
The good thing about it is the shock is over. We're seeing some bounce back, but it's the students are getting used to it. We're changing habits, so it takes time. And again, this year, the beginning of the year, it was a big shock year for the students. So at least we're going into a year that we already have everything adopted. They've relaxed some of the standards, so we should have a stronger year next year regarding those standards being relaxed. Here's just a couple of average spend per student is anywhere from $250 to $300 per student per year. So just down, say you're down 35 students, that's an impact. Service days, our average revenue for service day is $3,000 per day. So if you're down, 15 days, that's $45,000 in revenue. And it's all about our revenue opportunity in the district to try to generate that or manage that program efficiently. Some positives in the regulations: they've relaxed the proteins and bread maximums. They've been relaxed permanently. They've also added more varieties of milk options back in the program. So in the past, all we could serve was non-fat
1%
and 1%.
skim and non-fat chocolate.
Yeah, so the varieties have increased for milk as well. That just came out a couple weeks ago. Students are getting used to the standards, and then our vendors are now, our vendors were all waiting too to see what our suppliers, what was going to happen with this. So, they need to provide products to us that meet the a la carte regulations. So they were kind of waiting in tow with all the changes to see what they needed to do. So we're now seeing more products come on board for a la carte. So that's a positive for next year as well. Some of our initiatives for next year. The biggest thing is our communication. We got to make sure we're continually communicating to the students in the community. Here's the methods that we use this year, and we want to expand next year. Again, to do more of the new student parent orientation at the beginning of the year. To really get them used to the program at the beginning of the year and what we offer. further develop our website that Anna and Carl worked on to really promote the program. Quarterly newsletters to provide maybe to school committees what we're doing, as well as more participation at school committee meetings to give you updates regularly would help. Expansion of student focus groups, advisory groups. Those are the most important, just getting to the students, doing the iPod surveys, doing Survey Monkeys to find out, from the students, what they're looking for and what they want. And those are going to be most productive for us. And then the regular school committee updates. We're rolling out some new menu concepts next year, which we'll see in a second. We'll continue the menu sampling. We'll look at more chef-to-school events. We'll have some action stations to get the kids excited about serving stir fries right on the line, or doing some things creative to get their interest. We've got more culinary and nutrition training scheduled for staff with our regional chef and our dietitian. We'll continue with the wellness committee participation. We need to leverage our volume discounts we've got some huge purchasing power throughout the country, and we've been able to leverage those in the past years by buying truckloads of product in this region. So we'll continue to do that to bring our volume discounts back to the district, which will help offset some of that product cost. And the last is actually just review and adjust our staffing levels to meet our meals. And the standards that we look at when we look at staffing levels, it's meals per labor hour served. And there's a standard statistic that we manage to, that we have to make sure that we're being most efficient with the meals we're serving, and we have the appropriate portion of labor hours to serve those meals. Some of the concepts we're rolling out. Chicken dippity is a new concept. Actually, it's from our higher ed division. Chicken is still the #1 selling item in the schools. Pizza's #2. So this is one of the items we're trying to focus on in having some nice, healthier grilled products. Grab and go, easy to serve, quick to get off the line, with different sauces and different styles of chicken. Again, #1 item. It's working really well with higher ed. Casamigos is actually a Mexican cuisine that we're refreshing this year to really promote the Mexican Latin cuisine. Asian Nation, again, very popular among the students. We refreshed our Asian Nation program, so we'll have new menu items for the students. Students love this too, especially here.
High school in the high school liked the Asian Nation and the Casamigos, and I introduced the chicken tenders to the elementary schools this year too. So they're used to seeing breaded chicken tenders. These are not. These are just seasoned different ways and whatnot, and it took a while to catch on, but it's catching on.
And that's pretty much it. We know it's been a challenging year. We know it's been specifically, everybody's getting the impact from the regulations. Every district has a uniqueness and the challenges that they face. And we understand what they are, and we've actually been battling all year, working very, very hard trying to offset that, and we'll continue to do that, as we know that we're not expecting as challenging a year next year, and we've got some great great game plan to roll out next year. So we're confident that things will improve.
Questions, comments, maybe?
Kyle, how many years have we been running a deficit in this account?
6 to 7 years.
In a row?
Yes. The amount of money that we've been needing to transfer into the food service program for many years was in the $15,000 to $30,000 area. For 5, 6, 7 straight years, we offset the program by between $15,000 and $30,000. However, this year, as the committee knows, and this is a tough number to say, the offset is going to be as much as $100,000.
100,000.
Yes.
I mean, I personally, it's great the work you've done, but I think you're fighting a losing battle. I really do. Even if you increase the number of meals being sold, you might be able to improve your margin and cut into your fixed costs and catch up on your fixed costs, but I don't see it being profitable. I just don't. And I think the restrictions that have been put on you by the government are killing it. I mean, you're giving out, you're selling 1% in skim milk and losing money, and McDonald's is selling these nice vanilla shakes and they're making billions of dollars. I mean, I think it's fairly obvious.
It is a
So,
challenge.
I mean, basically what you're gonna do is, you're gonna, again, maybe increase the number of meals you sell, maybe, but regardless, even if you sell a maximum number of meals, you're still gonna be operating at a loss under these conditions, I think.
And everybody, again, very, the numbers here are very similar to other districts of your demographics.
Yeah,
too.
yeah. No, I'm not talking about, I'm talking about general.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. What's the government's intention? Is the government's intention to educate kids as to what is healthy to eat, or is it to actually try to implement these healthy meals on them for their current state of health? Because, my calculations are that there are 1,095 meals a year, and 165 of them are being served at the school. So they leave here and they go home, or they go to McDonald's, and you're talking about the parents wanting to know whether it's healthy or not. I don't know that that's the question. I think the question is whether or not it's something the kids want to eat, and whether it's healthy or not isn't that relevant to them. So,
It is a response to the epidemic, child, and again, it's only a small piece at schools.
that's my point. I mean, if it's to educate kids and say this is what's good for you, and this is how you should eat, that's fine. But I don't think that's happening for the other, 930 meals.
Yeah.
So,
I agree, Jerry. Even if we were to put back all of the half-days,
yeah.
even if we were to make some labor reductions, we would still be in deficit.
Yeah, I think so. I really do.
Karen?
No, I was just gonna say, so obviously I work in a nonprofit that does work in childhood obesity, and this is really controversial because the idea is to change BMI and shift BMI, and there's so many other components, physical activity, et cetera, but it's just one strategy and it's very political. And I think we're seeing it, and I don't know that the impact to districts is really being spoken out about. I mean, it's sort of, how do you address this challenge? We're continuing to sort of support this program. We're doing all these amazing things to try to incentivize kids to come in, and we're having a really hard
Well,
time doing
I
it.
just see it
How are
as
we
we
gonna
have
keep it going?
we have to continue to do this, but it's
Yeah.
going to be a cost that we're going to have to subsidize. It's going to be part of the cost of the public education is subsidizing the lunch program, unfortunately.
Right, but I still think that message needs to come back out, and we
Yeah.
have to continue to say it. The state regulations around the à la carte piece in particular
Right.
are the ones that I think are the
Those are
most
problematic.
challenging.
I agree.
because That's, I don't know, we chose to adopt that. We chose it. That's a real tough one.
We need to add this to the list of unfunded mandates.
Correct.
It's positively ridiculous that the government comes in and says, you gotta serve this kind of meal in a community where 1/10 of what the kids eat is served at school. The rest is at home or in the surrounding
Wherever they are,
community outlets. Because the kids are obviously not going to eat like this all the way through their day. They're just not gonna do it.
Carl, what percentage of our students do you know participate in the lunch program on a daily basis or a weekly basis?
I'm going to defer the
Probably
question to Anna.
40-50%. It's about average. No.
40 to
40,
50.
yeah.
I mean, I don't know how well they're being educated when they leave here
A little lower.
and they go to
It's lower
college.
than that.
They go to
It's
college
lower
next
than
year,
that. It's more in the 40.
and they go to these dining commons at the college, eat whatever they want, and put on 15 pounds in the first semester. I know that's due to other things as well, but the bottom line is that's a fact. I mean, you go to these dining commons, and you go to UMass Amherst, and it's unbelievable the offerings they have up there, and you can eat as much as you want of whatever you want. So I'm not sure how well the kids are being educated when they're all coming home and they're all bulked up on pizza and cheeseburgers and sliders and everything else that they can get their hands on.
And that's when I sit on this wellness program, it's overall, it's not just nutrition. It's nutrition education,
Right.
it's eating the right foods, it's the balance, it's the physical education, it's the overall health of the student and staff. That's what the wellness committee is for. But you're right, how do we get the student to say, take all of your fruits and vegetables, and then at 3:30, 4 o'clock, when they're done something, they're gonna run to a McDonald's. We don't compete with them. We're not trying to compete with them. And I'm hoping that maybe it's somewhere down the line that when a student goes home and says, you know what? I have these little tomatoes today, Mom, or I have these carrots that the mother will say, oh, great, you know, maybe I should try them. That's all we can do is try to educate them and maybe broaden their horizon,
And that's
broaden their
key.
spectrum.
That's key, as we always try to promote healthy eating habits, especially the elementary students, and have them grow into the secondary level, you know, where they have these good habits. And that's part of the initiative too, is to change these choices, the habits and the choices they make. So,
Well, I have
which
two-
is
Just two final statements, at least for me. One is the contradiction of the state force-feeding, literally force-feeding us on what we can give the kids, but then not providing enough time for physical, for physical education in the schools. You know, there's just, it's ridiculous because it's a contradiction. And two is, and this is no reflection on Chartwell's or our program, but, and this is more of a question for Carl, I mean, or Kathy, when do you get to a point where you just say, we're not offering lunches anymore? And are there districts that don't offer lunches? I mean, if you have 40 to 45% say eating lunches, to me, I wonder where you get to a point where the cost, you know, the diminishing returns just say we can't afford it anymore.
We do have to serve lunch.
We
There are
have to.
some requirements. But a couple thoughts come to my mind, and Kathy may have some additional thoughts. That one thing that I wanted to emphasize a little bit more in my introduction is that our food service staff has been terrific this year, because there's been a lot of changes for them. They've had to evaluate each meal as it comes through the register to make sure it fulfills the Type A guidelines. So there's been a lot more responsibility put on the staff. And so I wanted to publicly thank them. And what's so unfair about this is, given the reductions that we're facing, it's apparent that we may have to look at some reductions in the number of hours across the district, and that's very hard to do, particularly to a staff and a population to whom it's not their fault.
Right.
So
Right.
those are some of the major issues that we have facing us. There are some districts nearby that have, for lack of a better term, dumbed down the meal by providing the equivalent of airline meals.
Peanuts?
Airline meals, I was gonna say.
What's that?
I haven't had one of those in a while.
Prepackaged meals
Yeah,
that don't require
I've seen those. Those
preparation.
are just awful. I'm sorry, I've seen those. Those are,
Well, when you do that,
Airline
you know what you're doing, and I want to stress that that's not under consideration for next year. But when you do that, you are reducing your staff substantially.
Right.
Because you're not preparing.
You're also reducing your participation to
Yeah, I would say,
a
yeah.
minus number.
I would
Well,
agree.
But the thing is, Cliff, that means that you're reducing your deficit too,
Right.
because, you know, you're basically providing meals as you're mandated to do, and to those who want to buy them, which won't be a lot, so you reduce your labor costs, you reduce your cost for food, and basically you reduce your losses, so.
But what's the requirement? Is it federal regulations because of reduced and free lunches
Yeah.
that we have to serve, have a lunch program?
I can't cite the chapter and verse.
Yeah.
Perhaps Chris,
I
you can-
don't have, but I know it's tied to Title I too.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
We are required to provide lunch to students. The requirements are nutritional, but we can't just close up and shut down the lunch program.
I guess the other thing in terms of contradiction, and I don't think this promotes healthy eating habits either, is the amount of time we give our students for lunch, which to me is, it's not just our school, it's most schools. What, 22 minutes, 20 minutes? What kind of, and if they're standing in line for 5 minutes or 6 minutes and, you know, chatting with their friends, it's just not a lot of time to really eat and digest your lunch. But these are big issues, obviously, and difficult issues, because, you know, $100,000 is a lot of money,
Sure
and
is.
probably moving forward. Hopefully we've seen the worst this
Mhm.
year, and we'll see improvement in the
We're all
future
hoping.
years.
I'm very confident
Yeah,
this is
that's
the worst year, but again, I think it would be really helpful maybe to come back quarterly next year.
I think that makes a lot of
to
sense.
updates and give you really solid updates.
Yeah.
We would like to test some of the offerings. too.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, especially the new
We can
menu.
do
I
that.
like the new menu items I
Chicken
saw.
dippy.
Oh, I
And-
like that chicken
Increase-
dippy. That looked
Increased
good.
serving days.
Yeah, well, that's a good point also.
The rebel
Let's
in
move
me
it on,
is
yeah.
beginning to move, and.
All right, restrain yourself.
Yeah, I'm trying, it's
I'm glad I'm on
not,
this
not,
side of the table.
not being very successful. What happens if we serve some contraband meals?
I was gonna ask the same question.
Something a little, you know, still healthy, but a little bit outside the guidelines?
Title I?
Outside the guidelines,
Yeah, like what if we serve, I was gonna ask, what happens if we, one day a week ignore the regulations, but 4 days we obey the
Well-
regulations?
first of all, because we
No.
are Chartwell's, I can't get the product.
Ah. Go buy
No,
yourself,
it's
I'll give you a
actually-
grocery list,
It's
and I'll go
it's
shopping.
Actually, it's, the,
Calzone,
we need to,
you know,
we
there
need
is a
to
little
be in
bigger.
compliance.
there is actually, there are certain rules, once you, on the National School Lunch
School lunch
Program,
program.
you need to follow the regulations.
Yeah.
You know, there are districts that have gone off the school lunch programs.
Right.
That do not have to follow those regulations in some states.
But you don't get reimbursement, right?
You know,
No.
but actually you control more your program and your revenue.
Oh,
So,
Well, so
that's something we have to think about.
yeah, we gotta balance the amount of.
Right.
Input versus output.
You could serve ice cream sundaes every day.
Yeah.
Sure.
There you go.
Serve,
Drive that number up to 100% participation.
We could fatten these kids up and make a profit.
Make a profit.
Oh my God.
Forget about the subsidy.
Any other questions?
Oh, yeah, there's a hidden rebel here.
Any other questions or comments?
No, thank you.
Thanks for coming in. I
That was
do
very
think,
good.
I do
Thank you very
think
much.
quarterly meetings next
Yeah.
year would be excellent, and Jerry's suggestion of bringing some food items.
Our new menu concept.
Yes, that'd be great.
any way we can promote it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
That's tough.
Stay
here.
More participation.
That's the going on Twitter right now.
Chicken dip, that sounds, do you have that at your school this year? That looked pretty good.
Right off the
I
rails.
like Asian nation.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
Oh, God, this is beautiful.
Thank you.
Even if they still have more sales, by doing that, you gotta maintain your current flow of staff.
Right.
And you just cut a little bit until maybe it costs for one fixed hours. I didn't know.
So next we have our elementary school principals, and I know in the past year or 2 years, I think I tried to suggest who goes first, but I'm not even gonna try that this year. I'm gonna let them decide.
We always do.
Yeah. They always do anyway, so we'll dictate. Whatever comes up first will dictate who goes
Who
first,
goes
right?
first isn't important. Who goes fastest is important.
Yeah, that's-
what's important. No, no,
Who goes
no.
fast as you want me to do it?
Just gotta take a second because I have to switch.
All right.
When I test it, so.
I like your new wall, Mrs. Molly, over at the,
Isn't it nice?
very nice job. Carl, they did a very nice job on that wall.
Yeah,
Very
The
nice.
landscaping, everything. I think they did
Yeah,
a
they
great
did.
job.
They did.
I haven't seen the landscaping yet.
It's excellent.
yeah, they did a nice
The
job.
grass is coming in a little.
Yeah, little patchy, yeah, weedy, but
Yeah, grass at this time of the year, you
Yeah,
can't
it's
plant
tough.
it, it's
Yeah.
the weeds
Yeah.
just take over.
you try to get it in April or
Yes,
in the fall.
September.
Yeah.
It's brutal.
But they did a nice job.
There's
Very
a-
nice job.
There's a North Reading High School grad who's trying to start a landscaping
Oh, really?
business, who's doing some light work for us.
Oh, nice.
Oh,
Very
nice.
pleased with it.
Good.
Former student of mine.
Oh, yeah?
I've met him.
I've met him, but it doesn't mention the name. I had him in class.
Dan Bull.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
Danny?
Lopes.
Oh, Danny's doing a
Hockey
great
player.
job. Danny's doing great.
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah.
He was a hockey player,
Yeah,
right?
Danny lives out 2 houses down from me.
Very good hockey player.
Very good, yeah, very good player. He's doing well.
Nothing.
Went to UMass, Cal?
Yes, he did.
For the
Well,
two
yeah.
Stockbridge
Stockbridge
program. Yeah.
He's done some work at the high school. He's also potentially going to help us out with the bachelor parking lot that we're still talking about.
I think that's another issue for tonight's discussion.
It is?
Yeah, well, with
We don't have
John.
any
Riveting-
update on that, but
riveting topic.
that's still,
Looks like the Big Bang Theory. Hey,
I didn't come in and test this out, so. Probably real loud.
sometimes I find I have to reboot.
I just did.
The overhead projector will be halfway through the presentation.
The
Overhead
transparencies.
Yeah, I did that just. So trying to get rid of it, go with it.
You take it, you read all these?
I went through all.
I did,
Oh,
yeah.
reason-
I looked at them.
It's a question
open so you can see.
Yeah, I folded over a couple of pages too.
There you go, stop.
Comments?
Sorry.
Which one goes?
Which one, the middle or the bottom?
The top.
Good evening, everybody.
Evening.
Thank you for having us again. It's amazing how fast the year went by, isn't it?
Yeah.
So we are here to present the elementary school improvement plans. My colleagues and I, well, my colleagues worked diligently on the PowerPoint, so I thank them for that. So our priority number one, as it has been in the past, is class size. For the North Reading Public Schools elementary leadership team, low class size has consistently been our number one priority. Each year as we develop our individual school improvement plans and gather data, student-teacher ratios are always our number one concern. We firmly believe that the single best way to provide a quality education is by maintaining small class size. The community's expectations of teachers, students, and schools have increased steadily in many ways. Some of the increased expectations are created through changes in the law, such as No Child Left Behind and Massachusetts education reform, while others have been necessitated by the increased complexity of the world in which we live. Meeting these expectations requires increased teacher attention to students that a small class size allows. The North Reading Public Schools recognize and values the importance of class size and composition as important factors that contribute to student success. The North Reading School Committee's target class size is always reflected upon during our annual staffing reports. And that is kindergarten through grade 2. We hope for less than 20 students per class, and grades 3 through 5, less than 22 students per class. And our upcoming 2013-2014 school year, the class size statistics are, for the 2013-14 school year, it is expected that 100% of the classrooms at the LD Batchelder School will meet the North Reading School Committee's projected targets of class size. With maybe the exception of the full-day kindergarten and the inclusion programs, which may exceed target class size, but with support. For next year, it is expected, pending kindergarten, that 100% of the classrooms at the J. Turner Hood School will meet the North Reading School Committee's projected targets of class size in grades through grade 2, K through 2?
K through 2.
Class size in grade 3 through 5 range from 18 to 23. And for the next school year, it is expected that 100% of grades 3 through 5 at the E. Ethel Little School will meet the North Reading School Committee's projected class sizes. In kindergarten through grade 2, class sizes will exceed the projected target. Currently, they are at 21. This is a credit to the administrative team and school committee's commitment to provide every child the best opportunities to succeed, even during difficult budget years.
This year, we've made a cognizant effort to align our goals as leaders of schools and to try to get ourselves more consistent in our expectations. So this is the new framework for our elementary school goals, and you'll see this theme throughout the presentation. Goal 1 will be reflective of teaching and learning. Goal 2, management and operations. Goal 3, family and community engagement. And grade 4, professional culture. So we're shifting that focus and our focus toward alignment. So we utilized NRPS 2016, the Continuous Improvement Plan, the Administrator Evaluation Standards, as well as the Educator Evaluator Standards to shape our goals. And the Hood School is the first school. J. Turner Hood Elementary School, we continue forward with our philosophy of hand in hand, together we can. We believe that we can accomplish many goals if we work together with all stakeholders to achieve goals that are in the best interest of students. I want to just say a little thank you to the members of my school council. I had Mrs. Christy Gorman, who is currently a 4th grade teacher, Mr. Jim Allen, who was the manager at Stop and Shop, Miss Leanne Mahoney, who is a pre-K to 2 teacher at the Hood School, Mrs. Heather Laverdiere, a parent representative, as well as Mrs. Giacalone, another parent representative. I think that we had a wonderful year together, and I appreciate everything they did for me. Highlights at the Hood School this year for 2012-2013 was the implementation of No Atom science curriculum in grade 4, implementation of foundations in grade 2. We piloted co-teaching in grade 5. It was very successful. We maintained our 90 minutes of uninterrupted literacy in grades 3. In 90 minutes of uninterrupted literacy in ELA in grades 1 through 5. We installed 3 new smartboards as well as 2 iRover devices. We implemented a Hornets at the Hood mentoring program. We expanded our PDD program, and most of our work this year was done on professional culture. We conducted a book study, a study group. We focused on norms of collaboration in order to meet that goal that you'll see later on. Hood School initiatives for 13-14 under teaching and learning, and Mr. Killeen will speak more about this goal towards the end of the presentation. Our goal is to reduce the proficiency gap in math and ELA by half in the year 2017. And you'll see that there's little benchmarks that will get us there along the way. Management operations, to provide a safe learning environment for all stakeholders. Family and community engagement will be to improve the school, family, community partnerships through increased communication and engagement. Professional culture will be to strengthen professional learning community with a focus on shared responsibility to improve student learning.
At the Bachelor School, we continue to focus on our school goals, which are as easy as ABC, with achievement, bulldog, pride, and community. I'd like to recognize the Bachelor School Council membership, which includes Tabitha Hydorn, faculty representative, Catherine Barron, faculty representative, Jessica Hampoian, parent representative, Carol Smith, parent representative, and Betty Green serves as our community representative. Their contributions have been helpful in creating this plan and helping keeping the pulse on the school community. You're going to see one of the things that we're working on with the 3 elementary schools, which is a little bit different than a middle school or high school in North Reading, because it's one organization. We have 3 different schools with 3 different faculties, 3 different students, but we have a lot of things that are in common, and we are focusing on so we can share a lot of that work. So you're going to see in our outcomes and in our initiatives a lot of parallels just to show how much we are working together in the best interest of student learning. District-wide was the No Atom Science curriculum in grade 4, reviewing the science curriculum mapping due to the No Atom implementation in grades 3 and 4 the past 2 years, carrying over to 5 this year. The same thing with foundations. We fully implemented in grade 2 this year, and it was our second year for K1, so we kind of supported that as well. The integration of technology through hardware comes mostly, at least at the Bachelor School, from parent contributions and parent organizations. And we were able to install some additional smart boards and purchase 1 iRover device for our kindergarten classrooms. Through documentation of our integration of technology and the iPad implementation for the district, teachers who have access to that technology coordinate lesson planning for our students. We've done a lot of professional development and district school-wide data training. And at the school level, we've done a lot of perceptual data from faculty and staff with Mass Tells report, and then some parent and student survey work at the school. At the batch as well, we've done a lot of work in trying to establish our professional culture through book studies and the norms of collaboration. A lot of this is really going along with that theme that all students can learn and how to work together to look at student data. A lot of the things that are coming out and what we need to be discussing, we need to be able to leave a lot of things at the door to make sure that time is as effective as possible. So the staff has been really helpful in moving that forward. And then we continue to develop a development of an intervention system and progress monitoring at all levels to make sure students are learning. For our goals and initiatives, the same one common goal that all 3 schools will have is the reduce the proficiency gap in math and ELA in half by the year of 2017. Management and operations promote the learning and growth of all students, ensure a safe and productive learning environment. Always looking to improve the school-family, school-community partnership to strengthen academic and social programs. And our professional culture is one of the most important things that we have to offer.
And at the little school, we have our mission statement on the first slide.
Sorry, would you?
And I'd also like to thank the council who really did a lot of work this year, especially as we implemented new things like recess before lunch, and they were there to volunteer and help out and do a lot of the planning for various initiatives that we had throughout the year. So I thank them very much for their attendance at the monthly meetings, all of their wonderful ideas and collaboration. And that is Nancy Badavis, who's a 5th grade teacher in the school, Rosie Brennan, who is a 2nd grade teacher, a parent representative, Mark Fisher, another parent representative, Cheryl Flagg, who will be leaving us this year. She has a 5th grader who will be leaving, and a parent representative, Jill Janasiewicz, and Donna Prentice, a community representative. Some of the highlights for this past school year, again, some of them are very similar to what the other two schools you've seen on their presentations. We've implemented No Atom Science curriculum in grade 4, looking forward to going to grade 5 next year. Continued our implementation of response to intervention in grade 2. Implemented 90-minute uninterrupted ELA blocks for all grade levels. Installed 3 new smart boards in classrooms, which were a result of the parent-teacher organization donation. Improved homeschool connections and communications. 73% of the teachers in the building now have websites where they post daily homework and various announcements of events and so forth. We implemented recess before lunch, which we felt was very successful. Our hope was to improve the appetites of the students. In some respects it worked. The nicest part of that, when they have recess before lunch, they get an opportunity to cool down before they go back to class, and they can jump right back into learning when they get back to the classroom. We also implemented a Little School Leaders program, which included monthly themes regarding manners. It was, we did a whole month of table manners in the cafeteria, and just please and thank you, and teaching the children how to hold the doors open for each other, and it was really successful, and the kids and the faculty really enjoyed it. Some of our school goals and initiatives for next year, again, teaching and learning, reducing the proficiency gap in math and ELA in half by the year 2017. In management and operations, strengthen the instructional programs, health and safety of the learning environment. For family and community engagement, improve the school family and school community partnership to strengthen the academic and social programs. And professional culture, strengthen the professional learning community with a focus on improved student learning.
And that's what we spent most of our time talking about, was that student learning component. So we put together this slide just to show everyone that all the little components that we have that we're looking at to improve that student learning. So if you go into the first bubble, you have your teaching and learning, management and operations, your professional culture, and your family and community engagement, those goals. In the next bubble on the left, you have your administrator evaluation standards as well as the educator evaluator standards. And we have our school improvement plans that we're trying to align with NRPS 2016. All of those efforts are designed to improve student learning. I'm sorry.
As Mr. McKay and Ms. Molly shared, we've always done a lot of the same things in our schools and working with curriculum and student learning. This was the first year we really sat down and looked at the goals and through NRPS 2016 and using the data that's going to be part of administrator evaluation and teacher evaluation. So looking at teaching and learning and the climate that we want our children to be successful in. So this was the first year that Massachusetts received a waiver from No Child Left Behind. And that doesn't mean we're not accountable for students learning anymore. It just means Massachusetts has put in a progressive replacement for No Child Left Behind in AYP. And that is the CPI, the measurement of CPI and PPI for the students. So what they did was they took it, each of our schools will have different tables. So you have copies of our school improvement plans that have our tables in there. So the data is different due to the testing grade levels of each school. So what they did, they took the 2011 performance data, subtracted that by 100. You got your difference, divided that by half, and that gets you to 2017. So that's where the numbers come through as you move through.
I have a question,
Yes.
on that. So, reducing by half in all cases will get us to where we need to be in CPI in 2017?
For 2017, as measured right now by the state of Massachusetts.
Because looking through, obviously, some of the groups are subgroups are a lot more challenging than other subgroups. So clearly, we'll have to spend. I think you mentioned it up there. We'll have to spend as much time as we can on those groups without, and for lack of a better phrase, without leaving the other groups behind who are achieving close to the CPI in 2017 already. So we have to keep kind of our eye on both those balls, right?
Yes, and I like to look at it. I mean, our testing samples are relatively small at each school.
Yeah.
You know, less than 100 kids per grade level, so one kid is a percent.
Right.
You know, or greater than. So we're really able to start drilling down that data where, you know, it's making sure we're dealing with the right students the right way. When you look at your high needs group, identifying which students are part of that high needs group. You have your students with learning disabilities. That one's pretty easy to get into and track and follow along in what you're doing and the results you're getting. And then your larger aggregate and how that impacts it. So you start to get to drill down that data and better understand it a little bit. But the good news is, as you do that, each student is usually more than 1%.
So that's why you see, like, for some of the smaller subgroups, it looks like, whoa, they got a big mountain to climb. But then when you look at the overall, we're pretty close already to where we need to. So by being small groups, then you can focus the time and attention that you need to on those
Hopefully.
students. Yeah.
You know, and it's that's what we're going after and trying to understand that a little bit better.
Okay.
So with the ELA, you can see that all laid out by each school and how that goes by each subgroup. Like you said, you were able to see that in the data, and the same is for math. And the math directly aligns with the superintendent's goals and the district's goals of impacting math performance, not only by looking at the CPI, but also your student growth percentiles. So we're very aware of the goal for the district, and we're looking to make up our end of it at the elementary level to make sure students are performing at the highest level possible. Oh, that was it. So those goals, if you looked at those, are verbatim up on the top, exactly the same for each elementary school. The data points are a little bit different. The activities are pretty similar. A couple of things might not have fit different schools because we might be doing things a little bit differently, but working towards that same goal for the learning goals. And even the other goals are very similar. It's just some of the vocabulary and the terminology that each of us are using in our schools with our community vary a little bit, but the outcome is pretty much the same. So it was a good exercise for us.
Questions, comments? I have a question for the superintendent I wanted to ask. I think that we as a district highly support the inclusion model for our school district. But then when I look at some of the requirements that, you know, some of the CPI levels that you have to hit, it's almost like us doing the right thing by implementing an inclusion model then makes it more difficult for us to reach these numbers set by the state. So it's almost like the state is discouraged. I see some discouragement in inclusion because if you, like a lot of other districts, if you send most kids to out-of-district placements, you have fewer of those students to deal with in your own district, and thus fewer kids that you have to work individually with to get to those levels. I see it as a contradiction from the state. I don't know.
Well, I'd like to comment on the MCAS piece in terms of students in out-of-district placements. You may recall when we do our report on MCAS results, we take a look at the school results, and then we take a look at district results. Students in outside placements who take the MCAS are included in our district results. So they are assessed whether they're in district or out of district, and those scores reflected in district reports.
Okay, so
But-
that shoots about 300 holes into my theory there, so we don't have to go any further
Okay.
there.
Only two.
Only two. I did have a question on enrollment. I found it interesting that the little school, although it's small, and this is part of my prediction, it's little, right? It's small and little. I see an increase of projected of 5 students next year in total enrollment. I'm just curious as to, I see, Sean, you have projecting 471 total students for next year. Curious as to how that compares to the current year. And then, Glenn, you had 349 this year. Just wondering what you're expecting for the following year. Just to see what kind, because my belief is that this is just a really quick hiccup in enrollment, and just looking at what's happening around town and the houses being sold, that we're going to see a quick ramp up again in elementary enrollment.
You know, it was interesting, my first few years here, I had a bubble going through.
Right.
So we always had that extra
Yeah.
class at each grade level.
Right.
Now at my grade 1, I only have 2 classes rather than 3, so I have that inverse bubble going all
Yeah.
the way through.
Yeah.
But it seems to be steady coming back to 3 at each grade level on the other end. So I think
So you had 349
that,
this year. Do you know what you're going to have next
I
year?
believe my prediction was 356, if
So,
I'm
okay.
correct. But
Mhm.
it could be off by a few, I don't have that data in front of me.
How about you, Sean? You had 4 students.
But I'm a little bit higher this year, not a lot, so I think it's a decline of about 10 students, if that. And I have 5 sections of 5th grade. So we're a 4-section school,
Right.
K to 4, so my 5th section of 5th grade will be carrying into the middle school. So that little difference of the students, which is about 19 students, we've probably picked up with 9 more students coming into the district.
But it seems like overall, we've already seen a leveling off, and next year will be about the same for elementary, if not a few more. And I think you mentioned that we had a lot more registrations for kindergarten than we expected.
The kindergarten numbers are up. We periodically, if you take a look at the enrollment projections for the little school, this, and I believe it's on page 8.
Yeah.
This particular form is filled in by the elementary principals, let's see, at least 4 times over the course of budget development, and I just asked them to update those numbers again. So I can bring those to a future school committee meeting, but we're seeing fluctuations, and we'll continue to see those fluctuations through the summer when we do have children come in and register. So while some leave, some come in, but I can show you what we currently have.
But I just look at the little kindergarten going from 40 to 63.
That's been the most significant growth
We
in terms of
have the
kindergarten.
first time ever 2 full-day kindergartens.
Yeah.
I think our enrollment decline, I'm going to officially proclaim our enrollment decline over as of this moment.
It's funny you should mention that, because I was just speaking with the high school principal today saying that I want to go back and take a look at the enrollment projections from a couple of years ago and compare where we're at now with what was predicted by both NESDEC outside of district and within district that has been carried forward for years, and see where we're at, to see how much we've either exceeded, met, or we're below those expectations.
And I think we all believe to some extent that the new schools will retain more students in the district and will attract more students. If you look at, I hear a lot of people saying, wow, look at all the houses going on the market because the taxes are going up so high. Those houses are being bought in a day.
I know.
And I'm not talking about I'm talking $700,000, $800,000 homes are being bought almost immediately.
Mhm.
Because people want to move here. They're saying, we know what the taxes are, the school system's great, they're going to have a new high school and a middle school. That's where we want our kids to grow up.
Mhm.
So,
Well, it's interesting you mentioned that, because today, as I was meeting with Mr. Bernard, we were talking about by this time, when he has sent his email out to parents of 8th grade students, we usually see a 12% decline in enrollment from 8th grade to 9th grade. We are not seeing that as of right now. It's much lower in terms of the percent of students leaving.
yeah,
And that doesn't account for those that are coming in.
right.
So I think your prediction may be coming true.
I have
Well,
one
we
last.
don't know if he's right about the drivers.
What drivers?
What's right? Oh,
The housing changes.
Housing
changes,
Could be
right.
driven by other factors
It
like
could be,
the
right.
economy.
yes.
True.
Me too. I have one last question, and this is, I know I drive the superintendent crazy when I bring this issue up, but it's the Common Core, which I've become more cynical and skeptical of every article I read in the New York Times and Wall Street Journal.
You need to expand your reading list.
Scares me about the Common Core. My concern is with us trying to meet the CPI for all of these different grades, not only K through 5, but up through 12 or 10, wherever it is, that implementing the Common Core is going to almost disrupt that effort. And so while I'm not looking for any of you to, say the Common Core is the worst thing ever, I'm just wondering, your concerns or confidence in implementing the Common Core, because it's a pretty big challenge, I think. So I don't know if any of you want to.
I think in our discussions, we just really spend a lot of time focused on good teaching and learning.
Right.
And what's the best avenue to get there, and the Common Core right now is driver of that. And if you're teaching to the standards and meeting the needs of all children, then you'll have success in student learning in the end. And that's really, I know it's a real simplistic way to say it, but that's what we're all about right now, just focus on good teaching and learning moving forward.
We also look at curriculum materials. Teachers are working over the summer to try to do some work in the area of math to make sure that, we have the materials that we need when we hit the ground running in September. So there's a lot of work being done to make sure that, the textbooks we have are they the right textbooks? Do we need to look at, something that's more readily aligned with the Common Core? So, I think we're all in this together, and
Right.
we'll see how it plays out.
Your perception's a reality
Yeah.
for teachers and administration everywhere, where you don't know what you're going to be measured on. So waiting to see what that's coming, you don't throw, if you're a high-performing district, you got to realize Common Core comes into play, not so much for the districts and the areas that we're doing very well. It was to create this baseline that we're, all doing the same things. Well, we were already exceeding that. So it's difficult for us, but we're trying to move together slowly, educate our faculty and staff so they better understand it and can move with it.
That's always been my issue with it, is that there's a potential for high-performing districts to be penalized by the Common Core. That's always been my concern. And, it always bothers me that I think a lot of states adopted it just so they could get more money from the federal government. And that's not a good reason to change curriculums and to nationalize a curriculum. And I know that there are several states now that are considering withdrawing from the Common Core standards. And I don't think this state is one of them. I don't think our current governor, there's any chance of that happening. But maybe if we get a new governor.
Why are you looking at me?
I'm just saying, I just don't think it's going to happen. But I empathize with you, because I think it's a difficult process. And I will say, and we're talking about this later, that our teachers, and then this isn't related directly to the Common Core, but our teachers have been great in terms of the new evaluation system and working with them and getting that in place. So I know the teachers will be working hard to implement this, but it's not going to. I don't think it's going to be easy. And I don't know if you have any comments on it, because I know you.
Well, it's a mandate.
Yes.
And so that's my initial comment. Our students are performing at a very high level. So I think it's very important that we take a look at what the expectations are. What are we already doing right? And then continue to enhance what we're doing and take from the Common Core that will get our students that much further ahead. But as Sean just mentioned, and we just had this conversation last week, this spring the MCAS will reflect the change to the standards. So the MCAS assessment will be more aligned to the Common Core, and it's the first time. So we'll see how our students...
You mean next?
I mean next spring, I'm
Next
sorry, yes. This has already gone by, this year's gone by. So we'll see how our students do. And where our students do well, we know we're hitting the target. And where our students are not doing well, we need to improve our curriculum.
See, that's where I'm concerned, because the first state I think that gave the tests was Kentucky, I think. And their scores, I think it was like 2000, they were one of the early adopters. And their scores on standardized tests plummeted. Now, I'm not comparing Kentucky's public education system to Massachusetts, because I think there's a world of difference. But I also read that in New York this year, there were, I think that this year, their testing reflected Common Core, and there were some huge issues, and there were parents refusing to allow their kids to take the tests. And New York is, a lot of New York is a high-performing,
Right.
it's a high-performing state in education. So I know it's going to be trial and error. We're going to have to wait and see.
It's very
let's hope for the
controversial.
best.
It's not
So-
going away. Our commissioner sits on one of the boards for the country around the implementation and the assessment of the Common Core. So he's very much out there in making sure that Massachusetts stays engaged in this initiative. So it is going to be one of those situations where we have to see what that first set of results looks like and then take it from there.
Any other questions or comments for our?
I just wanted to make the comment that every year that we do this, I really appreciate how much work goes into it, and the council's contributing the time that it takes to do it. It's always nice to see these packets because there's so much in it, and I always feel like it's just a lot to absorb, but I really think it's a great effort that people are engaged. I really like the alignment of the 4 goals. I think that they're really good goals, they're comprehensive, and I think if we achieve them, we're going to be that much better, so I appreciate you guys working together as a team to make that happen.
I just also would like to add that you can see their action plans are outcomes-based, so it provides an opportunity to take a look at how we evaluate our effectiveness
Yes.
in real and meaningful ways. And that's how we continue to examine the data and make data-driven decisions. So all of the schools at the elementary level now are looking similar in their format as well as their expectations around measuring effectiveness.
This isn't related to the school improvement plans, but I wanted to thank Chris and the Little School community for your cooperation this year with the whole softball field thing. I know it wasn't
You're
easy
welcome.
for you or your parents or your kids. I think it did work out well because, well, at least it worked out well because the field, the grass actually grew better out there.
I saw that.
This Wednesday was the best that we've seen the grass out there in the oak field. So I appreciate, you putting up with a little inconvenience and figuring out how to work, how to get things, the bathrooms and things like that. So
Thank you,
it's much
appreciate that.
appreciated.
Sports are a very high priority.
I know.
Actually, it's aligned with goal number 2, which is safety and.
Safety, right, exactly. Anything else?
It's actually goal number 1.
Is it one? Okay.
Great.
Thank
Thanks a
you.
lot.
Thank you.
Good luck
Thank
the
you
rest of
so
the year.
much.
Have a good summer without the kids at the school.
Thank you for the candy, Sean.
We're done. We're back in the dark now. Back in the dark.
I don't know. I don't know.
Okay. So next, I believe we get back to continued business. And we have an update on the secondary school building project. Superintendent Willis?
Yes, there have been 2 secondary school building committee meetings that have been held, one on May 28th and one on June 4th. On May 28th, the secondary school building committee participated in a tour of the construction site and then moved to the high school auditorium for a viewing of the world premiere of the North Reading High School flashback video that had been created and developed by students at the high school. And we attended, and it was outstanding.
That's great.
It was outstanding. It really gave us a wonderful perspective of people's feelings regarding the current high school building, staff and students alike. In terms of the construction update, the foundation for D-Wing is 95% complete. When I wrote this, it was 95. It might be beyond that now.
That's the gym, right?
That's the
Yep.
gym.
D wing,
The gym.
yes.
I think it's 96% now. It's
Okay.
moving along. And it's-
It did rain.
98% today.
Yeah.
And underground utility work does continue. Main drill and blasting was on site last week, drilling exploratory holes at the access road and at the East High School parking lot. That's the student parking lot. The purpose for that is that ledge has been identified, and so they will be developing a blast plan and should be reporting back to school administration in the near future. I have not heard anything as of yet.
That's continuing to go on. It'll come through the police and fire, and there's a whole protocol to be followed.
Good.
And, there'll be trips to people's houses that are within 250 feet of the site.
Right.
And there'll be often an opportunity to let people in and look at the interior and record where the cracks are already, and so that if there are any that show up later, they'll be taken care of.
So that's for the road and for the wastewater treatment
There's a
plant?
spot on the road and at the wastewater.
Runs right
treatment
across the
plant.
back of the wing.
The
there,
ledge,
right
okay.
from one side to the other.
Yeah.
And
The
it-
intent is to fracture the rock so that it can be excavated, not to blast it out of sight.
Okay. No, nobody should be alarmed. I mean, it's one of those things that, almost don't know that it's going on unless you're there, aware of it. But they do go through a very elaborate procedure, as Cliff said, to ensure that if there is any damage, it's identifiable and can be related to the blasting and not something that was pre-existing, so.
And
If
that
you hear
process is underway.
The final
Yes, yes.
call on the blast, there's several steps in the last thing. Last step is fire in the hole, which is a standard blasting technique terminology that's used. And if you are aware of that, you listen carefully, you might hear the bump.
Yes, I have been told it will be minor.
Mhm.
I didn't know if there was anything else that Mr. Venezia, Mr. Bowers, or Mrs. Zambriano wanted to add.
No, I mean, the three of us are pretty much at all the meetings, the construction meetings on Thursday mornings, and as you said, the steel continues on the auditorium, and the next, it'll move from there to the gymnasium area, which is really the last, I think, structural steel section of the project, and I believe that should be completed around July 21st, I think, towards the end of July, beginning of August, for the structural steel, and then very soon, I hope to see it any day now, they're going to begin closing in the main Building A the classroom building, closing that in with, what do they use? Sheetrock and insulation and things like that. But the walls will be going up, is what I'm trying to say. Okay, so it's moving along.
That's great.
And also, I believe all of the major contracts have now been, bids have been accepted, correct? Because we had the plumbing and the HVAC bids that there were some challenge issues, and now we have a plumber and we have an HVAC
And we
vendor.
got the bid in for the glass and
Correct.
glazing
Glazing.
and the elevators. And
Right.
I think just about all of the bids
The major bids.
have been accepted.
Right.
yeah.
There's a few minor bids that I think are subs.
Still hanging out
Right.
there.
Right, but all the majors are in. We
Yep.
have a plumber on board and
Electrician
an
and
electrician and an HVAC
yep,
and,
waterproofing, yep.
yeah,
To get the project to continue going.
Yeah.
right.
The last building, we also took a look at a brick sample,
Oh, right.
and we took a look at that as compared to the two other bricks that will be the exterior facade of the buildings. And so the new sample was determined to be acceptable by the secondary school building committee, so that was good. And the next two meetings of the secondary school building committee are scheduled for, one is for Tuesday, June 18th, and one is for Tuesday, June 9th. July 9th, I'm sorry, beginning at 5:30 PM in the high school modular cafeteria.
Great. Any questions or comments? It's moving along fast. Okay, next, update on the pupil personnel director search.
This is just a very quick update to keep you informed. There was an interview committee, and they completed their charge on Thursday, May 30th, resulting in an unsuccessful search to fill the position of Director of Pupil Personnel Services. So we did advertise on June 4th for an interim Pupil Personnel Director. We advertised on School Spring. I've also contacted our collaboratives I contacted the Mass Association of Special Education Directors, so the word is out that we're looking for an interim. So far, we've received 10 applications. Of those, I see 3 that might be viable at this point in time. We'll look again at the end of this week to see how those applications, I've received 1 on paper and all the rest on School Spring. So we're going to proceed and hopefully find an interim for the 2013-2014 school year. What has been interesting for me is to discover how many school districts have had interim Director of Pupil Personnel Services positions over the last year or 2. So this is a difficult position to fill, and several of our surrounding districts that had an interim this year are continuing with the interim for next year. I was hoping to be able to take a look at those individuals had they filled those positions with someone full-time, but they're keeping them for another year.
Obviously, it's an extreme, all positions are important, but this is extremely important because, not only are we, trying to make sure we provide the best education for all of our students, but there's issues of working with out-of-placement schools, et cetera. Do have any issues developed in those districts? I'm sure the interims are a lot of retired people who had this job for 20, 30, 40 years and they're coming back for a year or 2. Do you know of any issues that have happened in other districts as a result of interims being employed? No?
I have not heard of any. I will continue to explore, but
Okay.
I haven't heard of any.
Because obviously it's a position that there's a lot of sensitive information in dealing.
Mhm.
That position probably deals more closely with families on a regular basis than just about any other position, other than teacher in the district. So,
Just a question, Kathy. I guess the process then of finding an interim is a shorter process, and I think we need to expedite it because
Correct.
we need somebody on board.
Correct.
Okay. And then are you going to start the search again immediately for a full-time? Because it seems like a lot of work to be going through here to look for a...
My plan would be to advertise at the same time that we advertised for the Director of Finance and Operations. That would be in January. That's when people who are currently employed are looking to move on or move to another district.
So it's a timing thing.
It's a timing thing. It's the same for any executive position at the central office level. The timing is about the same. You go out to advertise around January, February, and then you advertise for a certain amount of time, and then we interviewed. Our process this year started a little late because we became aware of the need to interview, not until April, and that's late.
How many candidates did you have?
31.
31, and nobody that you were...
We had intended to interview 8. We interviewed 6. Of the 6, we scheduled 6 interviews. Of the 6 scheduled, 2 one took a position elsewhere, 1 decided to stay where that person was currently employed. So we ended up interviewing 4.
Is this position a superintendent's appointment or a school committee appointment?
This position is, I bring forward a recommendation to you for approval, so you appoint.
Okay. All right, so it's our appointment then.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
all right. Any other questions, comments? Okay. Next, we have appointment to the SEAM Collaborative and Northeast Education Consortium Board of Directors, and I believe Kathy has been serving that role since she's been here, and recommends that she continue to serve in that role. So unless anyone has an oh, you know what? No, we'll do this first. We forgot to approve the school improvement plans,
Oh, we didn't vote on it, yeah.
but we will. Let's finish this first, and
Okay.
we'll get back to that.
We didn't vote on it.
So unless anybody has any objectives, I'd entertain a motion to reappoint Superintendent Willis to the SEAM Collaborative and Northeast Education Consortium Boards of Directors.
We'll move.
Second.
Motion by Cliff, second by Karen. Any further discussion? Kathy, anything you want to say about that, or these 2 positions?
It's my pleasure to serve.
Okay. Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous.
Thank you.
Okay, so now let's get back to the school improvement plans. I think we have to do these one at a time, right?
Yes.
So if, let's, at first I'll have a motion for the LD Batchelder School improvement plan.
So moved.
Motion by Cliff, second by Janine. Further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. And next, the
Move to approve the Bethel Little School improvement plan for 2013-14.
motion by Karen, second by Janine to approve the Little School improvement plan. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous.
Move to approve the J. Turner Hood Elementary School improvement plan for 2013-14.
Motion by Karen, second by Janine to approve the JT Hood School Improvement Plan. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next, the NREA contract agreement related to the new educator evaluation system, state system. Kathy?
Okay. Well, as you know, on June 28th in 2011, Massachusetts Board of Elementary and Secondary Education adopted new regulations to guide the evaluation of all educators serving in positions requiring a license. By 2013-14, every district in the Commonwealth will be phasing in the evaluation processes and procedures that are consistent with these new regulations. So the procedures for conducting educator evaluations are subject to collective bargaining in Massachusetts. So as such, the North Reading Educators Association and the North Reading School Committee entered into negotiations on September 24th, 2012, to identify the teacher and caseload educator contract language that will guide this new evaluation process. So 2 teams were identified. The North Reading Education Association team members included President Eric Foreman, Bill Cassell, Kathy Grant, and Carla Lister, along with the MTA education consultant Camille Visconti. The North Reading School Committee team included Chairman Mr. Mel Webster, Patrick Daly, John Bernard, Catherine O'Connell, and the superintendent. So the teams used the model language that had been issued by the Department of Education, as well as taking a look at other contract language that had been ratified by school districts already implementing the educator evaluation system this year. The teams came together 10 times over the course of this school year to negotiate this contract language. And I'm pleased to report to you that negotiations were very successful. They were conducted in a professional and collaborative manner at all times. And I really do appreciate the efforts of all of the educators and school committee members involved to get this work done in a way that best meets the needs of the North Reading Public Schools. So the North Reading Education Association ratified the contract language with their membership on Thursday, May 23rd, 2013. And then what needs to happen next is for the school committee to make a motion and take a vote regarding ratifying the language for the school committee in the North Reading School District. Once that vote is taken, and if approved, then we need to gather signatures of the chair of the school committee and of 2 members of the NREA. The past president, who is Eric Foreman, who worked on the development of the contract language, and the newly elected president, Mark Gorgani.
Mark's the new president?
Mark is the new president
Oh,
of the
really?
NREA.
I just want to add that the negotiations were excellent. I mean, there are some sticky wicket issues when you're going through this, and it's actually a difficult issue for the teachers because it's some pretty big changes in here in terms of things they have to. We have a great district in terms of we've always had our teachers set some really high goals for which they have to reach, and they've done a great job of that. And I think we've always done a good job evaluating our teachers, but this changes it. It's another one of those things where if we could keep staying the way we were doing things, I'd be happier. But the teachers, were great to work with on this. There weren't any issues. I attended the first 6 meetings, and then the last 4 got into specific rubrics and things that I had no idea about. So I decided to bow out after the first 6 meetings, where we got through all the language of the contract. And as Kathy said, it was highly professional, and it was actually enjoyable negotiating, getting this done. So,
Any other impacts to the contract at all as a result of this? Or?
no.
No?
No?
You know,
This was in the contract, but we stipulated that we would,
Yeah, I
so there's no-
remember, I
that we
just
would
took-
have to negotiate it at a separate
Yeah.
time.
And any radical changes from the model?
well, the model that we currently have in the district is a 4-year model. This is a 2-year model if you are performing at a high level.
But you're
What
talking
about the model
language.
established by the Department of Education, though?
No.
That's, yes, and that's what we've adopted.
Okay, so you've
Yeah.
adopted that without
With
a lot
some
of radical-
changes, what Kathy said is, there were some districts, Ipswich maybe, there were some other districts that have already adopted
Yep.
their contracts because they had to put this in place earlier than we do because we're not a race to the top community. So we looked at those districts and where the language made sense, if it was consistent, we implemented that. But
yeah.
I would say it's a good percentage of it is the model contract.
I would agree. There were some timelines,
Right.
the way that we implemented those
vary. Yeah.
timelines, where we made some minor changes, but I would say that this maintains the spirit
Right.
and the format, actually,
Yeah.
of the educator evaluation system proposed by the department, including at the back the forms that we'll be using to collect data, and they adopted the rubric in its entirety with no changes.
Yeah.
Because we see this as a work in progress. This is a growth model, and that's how we are perceiving it. We all have room for improvement, and so we're going to do our very best in implementing this next year. So 50% of the faculty will be on the new model, and 50% of the faculty will continue on the current model in place. So we're phasing this over 2
It'll be
years.
phased in. Right.
Yes.
Because that 50% had already set their goals, and
Right.
to have them kind of go back and start from the beginning really wouldn't be fair to them. So
Right.
once they get through the current program, then they'll start on the new program.
So what we've done, and we'll be meeting with the NREA on the 19th of June, is we've identified who those teachers are and who the evaluators will be. And we'll go back and take a look at that, but all of that is negotiated. We are obligated by this new contract language to make it known by September of every school year who the primary or supervising evaluator will be for each educator that's being evaluated. So that's a process that we're getting used to doing in the spring and having it ready for the fall.
One of my big concerns about this is our administrative team has always been involved in evaluations, but I'm concerned about the amount of time that this might take up.
That's the thing.
And I'm just really worried that these principals and people like Patrick Daly and Kathy and others aren't going to have
How much
the
time is it going to involve? I mean,
Well, I share your concerns. We're going to be collecting that data. We know what's being proposed, but anytime you implement something new, it takes twice as long
Right.
to implement it the first time around. So we've already started having conversations about there's only so much time during the day. What are we not going
it's
to be
not
able
just
to get to?
implementation; it's doing it. It's,
Right.
it's getting
getting
the
it.
work done. Yeah.
Getting the work done.
Is it possible to track some of this time, even if it's informal, to know how many hours per
Mhm.
week it takes, maybe even just
Mhm.
sampling 1 week where
Yes.
the involvement is high?
Yes.
So we can really quantify it.
Yeah.
I think the community should know
Yeah.
how long this takes.
Yes,
idea.
we will do that
Yeah.
to the best of our ability.
You need a vote on this, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, and I believe Mr.
Oh,
Mahar will have to recuse
I'm
himself.
going to abstain.
Okay.
So
I didn't recluse myself because
No.
it's a very generalized
Yes.
thing, and I didn't think I needed.
I'd move to
No.
approve the educator evaluation amendment to the collective bargaining agreement.
Second? So a motion by Mr. Venezia, second by Janine to approve the North Reading Educator Evaluation Proposal Amendment to the current NREA contract. Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained?
Abstain.
One abstention. Thank you, Cliff. And thanks, Kathy. Again, just the negotiating, the hours, probably each session was at least 3 hours, and some were probably longer as you went over the rubric.
And then there were
things.
strategy sessions
And strategy sessions
preceding the
preceding, right.
negotiation session.
Right.
So
So-
it's been a huge undertaking.
Oh,
A lot
congratulations
of
for
time.
getting it done.
Yeah.
Okay, next, summer meeting schedule.
So in the past, since I've been here, maybe it was different before then. The school committee has met once during July and once during August. And the school committee also participates in a goal-setting workshop, typically during the month of August. So I am looking to propose these dates. I'm not quite sure what your availability is, but I was looking at July, this past year, in July of 2012, we met the last Monday of the month.
Mm-hmm.
So the last Monday of the month for July 2013 is the 29th. And similarly, we met the last Monday of August. And this year, it's August 26th. So I'm not sure what the availability of the committee is for those two dates.
Works for me. Anybody else? Anybody have any issues with those dates?
29th and 26th.
29th and 26th?
I schedule everything else in my life around school committee business, so there's no problem with me.
That's why I have those available too, Jerry.
Okay, so July 29th and August 26th.
Thank you. And in terms of the goal-setting workshop, I was looking at two dates in August. They are not Mondays, they are Wednesdays. And I wasn't sure, I'm just throwing these dates out as a start. So if they don't work, we can come up with others.
August 7th is okay with me.
August 7th?
My only recommendation is, could we do both? Two goal-setting workshops.
I knew he was going to say that.
Jerry,
Huh?
Jerry, you can do both dates.
Yes,
All
you-
right, if we could. They're both fine with me.
August 7th is good with me.
I'm gonna be on staycation both of those weeks, so fine with me.
Janine?
I'm not, I don't have a preference.
So August 7th, want to do that? All right.
Fine with me.
And we start that earlier, right? 6:30?
We can start as early as you'd like. I'd be happy to order food for the committee. Or,
That's
A
right.
full day workshop would be fun.
oh,
Well, we could do two, I mean.
whatever time works.
Are you
for
going to
the-
recommend we start at 6?
Yeah, I can, anytime I'm gonna be home,
Start
so
at
I
6?
start even earlier if you want.
6 is fine with me.
Let's start at 6.
That's fine.
Okay, so goal setting.
It'll still be light then, right?
Yeah. Maybe we can do a tour of the school beforehand.
That would be great, 6 o'clock.
I hope it's still
Seven.
like
If it's not, we're in big trouble.
Jeez.
That's if I live that way.
Okay. And you are still, Kathy, in terms of our meetings after that, you're still trying to, Greg needs
I
to
am.
set the selectmen's meetings, right? And then
Yes.
we're going to try to work that, see if we can have most of our meetings, if not all of them, at the selectmen's room. And I promised Kathy that I would come over and help her carry the stuff over to the school committee, over the town hall if we did
And when
that.
it's raining, you'll hold the umbrella.
When it's raining, I'll hold the umbrella for you, yeah.
I hope to have a tentative schedule for you at the next school committee meeting.
Okay. Okay, bills and payroll, we're all set. We had a technical glitch this week. I don't know what it was, but I couldn't sign one of the things, and
Right.
it just kept like flashing, and I thought I did something wrong.
Is
And
that why
then,
it canceled?
yeah, yeah.
Oh.
Same problem.
Yeah.
Working on it.
Yours worked though. Your signature
Don't
worked.
worry, I was here to sign.
That's right.
But I came here. But I had to come for another thing anyway, so I signed.
We
it.
had to go old school.
Yeah, but was there just a
Oh.
technology glitch, or?
Yes. It's actually local. It's something to do with the server, but we're giving it another try tomorrow. And
Okay.
I'm pleased to say that probably effective Thursday, Janine will be joining the.
Oh, yay!
So,
I am getting the signatures
You're
like
good,
that,
yes.
boom, because we switched to my work
Yes,
And
yes.
that's-
email. It's so much faster.
Well, that's why I
I'm
was so
like,
upset
"Oh, yay!"
because I'm
Thank you,
like,
Karen.
oh man, Karen signed. I can't sign this. And then I'm like, how are we going to get these done? And then I don't know if yours worked.
I had the same problem. I filled in one.
So,
Yeah,
so
one
I
word,
did
the
it
other
before
didn't.
one
Right.
was
because of
already
immediate,
filled in,
like,
but it
Right.
said
Yeah.
sign.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So
It
Mr.
kept saying,
Chairman,
right.
I had
Pushed it
no
to
problem
sign
at all.
it,
I
it
just came
emptied.
over and signed my name.
With your
right
pen,
there.
yeah. No, but
I had no problem at all.
my name was
proud
there
of
and
you.
it kept blinking, sign, sign,
Right.
sign.
Like
And
And
then,
we
then
held
it
on
wouldn't
some pens.
confirm.
I did have to borrow a pen. I will admit, I did.
Right, and it wouldn't
It wouldn't
confirm it.
confirm and wouldn't go on.
right, okay.
And
We're going to keep a stash of pens
All
around.
right.
Okay, minutes. We have a ton of minutes. No, we have hours of minutes is what we really have. We don't have a ton.
I
You
don't-
want to suggest a process for approving these, like something?
Um,
I can just go through all of them.
The first few, Janine can't, up through April 29th,
I would have
Janine
to
can't
abstain
vote.
from-
She'll have to abstain because, and we
Can't
also
vote
want
on
to
May
get,
6th
we want to
either.
get Michael on the phone for him to approve these because he was here at these
I think
meetings.
it's gonna be a close vote.
Yeah.
All right, so then can I just go
Yeah,
through them?
I had no problem in the first two open and the,
Yeah, okay,
I found
so
no
move
issues.
to approve the meeting minutes for the regular meeting on April 22nd.
can I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed, unanimous.
Okay, and then I move to approve the regular meeting minutes from the April 29th session.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, unanimous, one abstention, sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Okay. All right, move to approve the executive session minutes from April 29th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
One abstention.
Now Janine can.
Janine can play now.
Now we can play.
Okay, so move to approve the regular meeting minutes from May 6th.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, unanimous.
And move to approve the executive session minutes from May 6th.
Well, actually, there's,
With-
this has,
Change.
this has Mike, yeah, this
I
has
know.
Michael on the,
Move to accept.
We need to
Oh, she
amend it.
moved to
Michael wasn't
accept.
there.
I'll
That one.
second it.
Awesome.
You sure he
Okay,
wasn't there?
I'm amending my motion to replace Michael Kujakti's name with Janine's.
okay.
I'll second that.
Okay. All those in
I would
favor?
hope.
Aye.
Aye.
All
Okay,
right.
I had problems on these, so before we go.
You wanna go first? or-
Yes, it has Mrs. Laura Wall as a Batchelder school teacher. I believe she's a middle school teacher, correct?
She's a middle school teacher.
Mr. Bowers?
Correct.
Oh, I would-
And
I
then-
didn't get that one.
And the
And
next line,
it's- in the first line there, under visitors, it's not Miss Harley Duffley.
it's Mrs.?
Mr.
Mr. Oh, Mr. Harley Duffley,
Yeah.
okay.
On the 20th, right here, this should be a Mr.
Mr., and then on the fourth line, Laura Walsh be middle school. And then the next line, Franconia Burke should be Franconia Berg, B-U-R-G. And then on page 3, under Director of Finance and Operations Contract, it says the committee voted to approve a 3-year contact,
Thank you, that was the only one I caught.
as in Lens. You caught that one too?
Yes,
Yeah.
that was the only one I caught.
And
What else
that's-
did you catch?
But the names,
I
but you
have
don't know.
Yeah,
the-
I
you don't
wouldn't
the
know
names.
those.
Yeah, yeah. So-
Where,
May
um,
20?
Right here, under Director of Finance.
I have contract.
Really, we have contact here.
CONTR.
I have contact, 3-year contact.
Me too.
You looking in the
What
same
did we
place?
send out? 2
You looking in
separate-
the same place?
Which, when,
Oh, up in the
D3.
narrative
Yeah.
part.
No,
okay.
D3, the next to last line. It
Got it.
says, committee voted to approve a 3-year contact.
That's
Okay.
120.
At one- Okay,
Yeah, I missed that one. I
so with those,
Amendments, I move to approve the regular meeting minutes from May 20th. Janine
Second.
cannot vote.
I'm abstaining, I wasn't here.
right, motion by Karen, second by Cliff, all's in favor?
Aye.
One abstention.
Is that a record for getting?
Yes,
through
that was
this?
good, very
It
good.
was pretty good.
Yes, nice and fast.
Woo,
By the way, the
okay.
kids did the thing in Washington, and it was fantastic.
Oh, did they? They
had
did it in
a
Washington?
wonderful- Wonderful experience.
Really?
Got to go to the Capitol. They rode the little railroad into the House.
Who did they present it to? Who?
It was to all of the people surrounding the Toshiba thing,
Okay.
and a whole lot of reps as well.
So that was the batch kids, the kids from the batch who won
Kids
first
from the batch,
place.
right, and of course there were others, the other teams, and there's 4 levels
Right.
that do it, and then there was both the first and second place, so there were 8 teams altogether that were there, and it was televised and so forth. They had Fox National News science editor on
Great.
with them, and it was quite an event.
Great. And I know our middle school kids departed for Washington today, didn't they?
Today at 5:30 a.m.
Wonderful time.
Good for them.
I waved on Friday.
He said five,
He
five.
recorded wave.
I was 55 years old before I realized it was a 5:30 a.m.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
I always
that's
thought it was
right.
p.m.
Okay, next we have Carl, budget update.
Yes, 3 quick things. I first wanted to just acknowledge that we've distributed the FY14 budget document to you. We don't print as many as we used to because it's all available online and it's available for internal purposes within our munis system. But this is a reflection of the town meeting vote last Monday. Number 2, I wanted to just bring your attention that in your packet there's a copy of the audit report for FY12. And this is the annual report of an external auditor that is selected by the town selectmen looks through our policies, not our policies, but our procedures relative to personnel, to hiring, to bidding, to accounting, to grants, to everything we do. It's an intensive audit, and as I often like to do, I really like to devote some time to just confirming to the school committee how wonderful a job the business office personnel do to kind of support and reinforce the work that we do. You know, I work with them to set policies, but they carry out many of the procedures which manifest themselves in a truly outstanding audit report. It doesn't get much better than this, really. And when I speak to the auditors, they year in, year out tell us that there's no better audit report that they provide than it is to North Reading. So I'm very appreciative of the work of the business office
This is
staff.
outstanding. I think there was one minor issue
There is
they
one.
found throughout
They did.
through the entire thing.
That was,
And-
I had a question on that, Carl. That the prepayment there, which fiscal year is it actually attributable to? In other words, if we prepay tuitions, I'm looking at the note on page 6 there.
Well, you know, that's not even a finding. Let me just find what you're referring to. What procedure number, Jerry?
It's procedure 10.
Yeah.
And it's
okay.
just a note.
Yeah. Well, what they're saying here is they go through a set of template procedures each year. You never know what they're going to be always,
Yep.
but they go through a set of procedures that is given to them by the Department of ESE. So, procedure 10 is asking the auditors to ensure that we're characterizing our special education tuitions properly. And in other words, since we prepay tuitions, and we'll be doing that again this year.
Right.
In the month of June, this June of 2013,
Yeah.
we're going to be prepaying.
For
some-
2004
Yeah.
fiscal.
So this examination is a determination to make sure that even though we're paying these tuitions out of FY13 money, that you characterize them as FY14 expenses next year.
Really?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, and vice versa.
All right, because I thought it was, okay, all right.
So they're just, and it's very confusing and complicated
Yeah.
because it's a manual thing. The computer system keeps trying to tell you, no, it says 13, but it really is 14. So
Okay.
they're saying that the results of this examination were that it was done correctly. So that's just one of the
All right.
examinations they did. The finding is actually, and I want to stress that these findings are, in the scope of things, not that significant. Anyway, on page 7, procedure 11, they found that we reported the school's workers' compensation costs twice.
Yeah.
And that was a little miscue between the finance director and I. She reports it in a different way than I'd been accustomed to receiving it, because that's a bill paid for by the town, you see, and they have to tell us what it is. So we had them in very early this year, because at first we thought that I was going to be on hiatus earlier than I am. So we had them in very early.
We all did.
Yeah. I still haven't told my wife, by the way. Yeah. So,
She still thinks he's working full-time.
oh, summer too. So what we
I
have
think
here,
he's ever leaving.
Yeah.
what we have here is this audit report was done so early that I was able to correct it at the time of submission. So there's no impact whatsoever. They caught it, we fixed it, all's kosher. So,
Great.
so that was the only thing they found. Interestingly enough, they did their work, said they were done, and auditors came back and looked and found that. So that's the second thing on the report. Third thing is this, the May budget report that was included in your packet. And nothing of significance to report. This is the time of year where we're trying to identify funds to prepay in special education. Just this afternoon, we met with, Kathy and I, with the PPS director to identify ways that can happen. We need to do at least $100,000 in order to balance the budget, and it is our hope, and I think the next agenda item will speak to that we will be able to prepay additional funds that allow us a little bit more flexibility of savings or things that we'll speak to momentarily. But I'm confident that we'll be able to do that. Special education continues to be our budget buster this year, but you know that, and we've really made efforts all year to make sure that that wasn't going to cause us a problem. So we will end the year with a deficit, but we have found the money already in other areas. I also note in the last paragraph that as we spoke earlier, our food service deficits are costing us increased budget offsets, and I've noted here that it is now clear that we will have to increase our offset by an additional $45,000 this year in order to keep this account in the black. We've even had some discussions informally about if we do have extra money at the end of the year, possibly it might make some sense to put a little bit more money in the food service revolving account so that next year's problem will be lessened.
We'll start out ahead of the game.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Have a higher opening balance, in other words. So that means there's a little less pressure next year to offset it. And Kathy and I will continue to talk about that. We'll know more at the end of the month.
Carl, I don't think Chartwell's has any culpability in what's gone on with the lunch program here or in other districts. But have we done any, have we looked at any of the districts that have the programs in-house to see what kind of deficits that they're facing? I mean, I'm not saying we should bring it in-house, but I think it's worth looking, and maybe that's something that Michael can tackle when he comes on board, because I have a good friend who runs the Danvers program, and I haven't talked to him about it, but I made a note to give him a call tomorrow just to see what kind of situation they're having there. It would be interesting to see how, because maybe the pricing power isn't as strong when they're buying things, but maybe they can react more quickly to bring costs in line. So
I fully agree. And I've said this, I'll say this publicly because I've said it to Anna and Chris, that they know that the Chartwell contract ends next year.
right.
So that we do need to go out to bid, regardless of what our decisions are, if we are to consider an outside contractor. There are 3 primary outside contractors in Massachusetts, Chartwell being the largest. If we do want to outsource it again, we do have to go out to bid. But Michael does have experience in both contracted food service and self-operated food service. So I think it's an appropriate management study that could take place next year to look at both options. And furthermore, I mean, and this isn't, again, to criticize Chartwell, but you have to look at all options. You really do, given the tenor of the times.
Right.
Look at a shared regionalization. There are communities contiguous to ours that are sharing directors between 2 communities.
I'm gonna guess whether or not you do it in-house is gonna depend a little bit on the size of the community, the size of the enrollment.
Well, that's why the
you know.
shared might
Yeah.
make sense. You mentioned some of the other districts using the airline type system. Are there any close by that are doing that? The prepackaged meals? Is it Linfield?
I believe Chelmsford is.
Chelmsford? Yeah.
Yeah. And Jerry hit the nail on the head. You decrease participation when you do that, but you also decrease costs.
Well, I do know there's a woman who, I think she was a high-tech executive who did very well in the tech industry, and she started a new company maybe back a year and a half ago to address this issue. Prepackaged lunches, but quality lunches, as opposed to what you would get on an airplane. I'm gonna try to look up that information, because I think that's something. Again, all options should be explored. Since we have to offer lunches, we might as well try to do it in the most cost-effective and nutritious and delicious way that we can.
Yes, that's an unfair characterization of me to use airline
No, I know.
meals. I
But I know what you're talking about.
I shouldn't use that because that automatically is
Right.
a pejorative term.
Right. But I know that means that everything's shipped in, basically. It's prepared at a central location, and they'll bring 500 lunches to one school and 700 to another school, and not, and I think the quality of our lunches is good, based on
No,
the
it
food
looks-
they've brought in
it
here.
looks fantastic. But
So-
they're just not selling.
Right. And if kids want to bring bag lunches from home, there's nothing you can do about it.
The management company has lots of pluses and minuses that we'll examine next year. They are more expensive
Sure.
because all of the resources that they can bring to bear, their nutritionist, their dietitian, their marketing,
Paying for that.
We pay
the
right.
overhead, as I said before, they handle the International Olympics in London.
Right.
I mean, they're a big company. So you have that. Those they brought in 6 food service directors to spend the day here to examine us. So
It does appear though they've done what they should be doing to try to figure out how to improved participation.
I believe they have. I
Yeah.
wouldn't say that if I didn't believe so.
Right, yeah. Okay. Next, we have staffing.
Yes. In your packet, there is a job description for what's called a digital learning specialist. You may recall during the budget process, there was NRPS 2016 presented to you, and there were costs associated with implementing certain facets of NRPS 2016 in FY14. And that total, I believe, came to approximately $175,395. $175,395. Under technology integration, there were two positions, a digital learning specialist and an assistant director of digital learning. And it became clear, based on the costs, that it did not appear that we would be able to afford the implementation of either one of those positions during the budget process. Since then, I've already come back to you and said that we are going to be implementing under teaching and learning grade 5 of the NOADM, because we were able to capture some funds from this year's budget to order those materials. So that was the good news. As we continue to take a look at available funds in FY13, and based on everything that you've already heard around offsets for special education, for food service, as well as carrying forward some additional funds not already included as an offset in the FY14 budget, we believe we will be able to identify enough funds to support the position of digital learning specialist, which is about $40,000 less than what it would take to hire an assistant director of digital learning. We had budgeted about $48,000 for a director. A digital learning specialist, and about $88,000 for an assistant director. So Patrick and I, and Carl, and Patricia Bullard have regular meetings. We call them central office meetings, and part of our conversation is how do we move the vision forward in the most cost-effective manner, gaining the most leverage for improving student achievement. And we're also taking a look at what are the resources available to us in order to do so. And through those conversations, we determined that hiring that digital learning specialist as an individual who'll be working directly in the schools with the students, with the faculty, with the implementation of the iPad initiative, as well as the standards for using technology in the classroom, and moving some of our classroom initiatives forward, particularly the technology associated with NOADM, that we felt it was most cost-effective and efficient to bring on a digital learning specialist this year, and then try to fund the assistant director of digital learning next year for the FY15 budget. In addition, as we move this building project forward, we have been working with the vendors under technology to set up a model classroom for the 21st century in the current high school that will already have in it samples of the technology the teachers will have access to when the new facilities open. So this person would also assist with the professional development associated with those new technologies that are going to be in this model classroom in the high school, helping to train our teachers be ready to implement the use of this new technology when the new building opens. So we're taking a look at how we can use this person as a professional developer, as someone who will be co-teaching with teachers in the classroom around the integration of digital technology, and somebody who will be able to work with us as administrators as we move this bigger vision for staffing the whole technology integration major strategy area forward. So that's what I bring to you tonight. It is a little different from what we had originally proposed, but we've had lots of conversations around shifting where we use our funds based on the funds available to us to continue to move the vision forward. So I open this up for discussion.
Questions? Comments?
I love this. It's great. Let's do it.
I like it. I just have one question, and
Yes.
this probably isn't feasible. I strongly believe that we need that director, the assistant director level person. would it be possible to hire somebody at mid-year, have them work half a year, and then they'll be on, because I'm concerned that the director position is critical in terms of being on board with the new school coming on board. That's,
I appreciate your
I
creativity.
support this,
Mhm.
but if, I don't know if that's possible.
We did have conversations similar to that, Mel, in that we thought, well, can we bring on a half of a director and a half of a digital learning specialist, and see what we can do in terms of splitting that up and using some funding that's going toward a paraprofessional right now that maybe could go toward. At the end of the day, we felt that this was the best bang for the buck, if you will, to
Yeah.
be most cost effective,
Okay.
and to be in line with the vision for technology. It doesn't mean that we won't continue to see if there's an option for maybe a mid-year hire, depending upon available funds. I am very cautious about the use of one-time funds to subsidize or offset this year, FY14's budget. So I am being ultra conservative around making sure that we don't overextend ourselves
Okay.
in the budget area. So
Right.
I'm being real cautious.
Sounds good to
I
me.
think Mel makes a good point, though, about having somebody on board with the expertise to have significant input into the technology that's going into the new building. I know that
Mhm.
a lot of that's already laid out, but
Mhm.
somebody that would have, the experience to look at that and make sure we're doing the right thing over there. would
Well, I
be
can assure you
important.
that Patrick Daly, who has responsibility for that now, and who is stretched very thin.
That's my
Problem.
concern, right. I
Very
know Patrick
thin.
really knows technology well, but
Yes.
with the new evaluation system coming into place, which is going to pull him in that direction, and the core curriculum, which, and that's his responsibility.
You're right.
Because this thing's ripe for glitches out here.
Exactly.
If we're not
It is.
careful,
Right.
and it's really
It is.
important that we get it
We
right.
will continue to try to think about maybe bringing forward a position mid-year. I have to take a look at the
Well,
finances.
but even if you get this person, if they have enough expertise, can help
It
in
depends
that
on who you
role
get
and can
for the
maybe
spot.
take something off of
Yeah,
Patrick's.
it depends on who you get for the
Shoulders, right.
spot. And-
Exactly.
And maybe a less experienced person, but, the 3-year-olds now can
Right.
operate that. So, you may be able to find somebody that is younger that can help more
Mhm.
with the technology.
But it sounds good. I say, great job at coming up with the resources to even get enough to bring this person on board. I agree with Karen. Should be helpful.
I hate to suggest this, but I don't sit on any committees, so if you needed help, I could help you with the tech piece, but
Okay.
only for like
Actually-
recommendations and things like that.
Okay.
Obviously, you need somebody who's permanent, but I'm
Mhm.
happy to provide sort of support.
Do they still have I don't know if you could attend, do they still have the tech committee?
Yes.
Because Michael used to serve on that, right?
Yes, he did. And the committee commenced to revise the technology plan that is submitted to the Department of Ed. But since we've been involved with the building project and the
Okay.
tech plan is up to speed, they haven't been meeting because Patrick's devoting all of his time to making sure the infrastructure is in place for the new building.
But if you could, attend
I-
occasional
I'm
meetings,
happy
but
to-
make input on
Mhm.
that too.
Mhm.
You know, if you
But
see
I
the
will
minutes
pass that on,
In a
Karen. Thank you.
non-interfering sort of way.
Okay,
I would
that's
be
great.
happy to participate.
Good. Thank you. Okay, bids and donations. We actually have a donation tonight, which I'm trying to
We have an
find.
anonymous donation.
Yes.
An amazing, great,
Yes.
wonderful.
And now I'm trying to find it.
Thank you.
Oh, I got it. Thanks. We have a North Reading High School Athletic Department has received a very generous anonymous donation of $5,491 for the purchase of new football jerseys and pants. Highly
Awesome.
generous.
Very generous.
I would like to
Especially
move to
anonymous.
accept this donation with gratitude.
That would be nice.
Could I have a second?
That's the second.
Oh, that was okay.
That's an awesome
The new way of.
second.
I like that
That'd be
second.
nice.
Very creative.
Yes. Any further discussion other than thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Anonymous out there? Thank you
Yeah.
very
Very
much.
much.
This is awesome.
Just for discussion purposes, I think it was my first year on the committee, it was 12 or 13 years ago, there was a issue about freshman sports being eliminated. And I got a call one day from somebody and they said, can you meet me at I forget where it was. I think it might have been at the old Batchelder School. And the woman handed me an envelope and said, this is a donation for the freshman sports program. I said, oh, thank you very much. And I opened it after I left. There was a check for $10,000 in there. I didn't even get her name.
Wow.
Did you ever find out who it was?
Later on, we did find out who it was, and we kept it anonymous, but it was a check for $10,000.
Wow.
Yeah.
Incredible.
12 years ago, $10,000. That's
It was like, yeah.
20,000.
20
Yep.
today. Wow.
Yep, for the sports program.
Great.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Thank you very much. Subcommittee updates. I can tell you we won't be having a evaluation subcommittee meeting tomorrow because the three members had 3 different dates for the meeting, so we won't be there.
That never happened when I was on.
I know, Cliff.
No, Cliff, you're right,
I know.
it didn't.
You're much more organized than I am, Cliff. I gotta tell you that much.
What's the story with the athletic subcommittee?
It
Yeah,
has
that's-
been confirmed for the 20th
The 20th.
20th.
of June
Okay,
at
Yeah.
1:00 p.m.
at 1.
1.
Yes.
Okay.
Everything's different.
And then evaluation sub is we have to reschedule.
We're going to reschedule.
And we have finance planning team Friday, which should be a yawner, I hope, since the town meeting's over.
Done.
You're
Should be
supposed to be more positive.
No, but a positive yawner. No crises. No crises.
Jinx.
Administrative report?
Yes, I did hand out a supplemental packet to you
Yep.
earlier this evening. What's not on there that I would like to mention is tomorrow evening at 7 p.m., the North Reading Dollars for Scholars will be having their 50th anniversary of the Blue and Silver Tea Reception to honor the 2013 CSF Award recipients, and that will be held at the Hillview Country Club. So I just want to make note of that. It begins at 7
And
p.m.
I'd like to not be the only committee member there this year.
We better have the conditioning
go.
room, we better have a backup for you.
Yeah, I know.
Just in case you
Just not feeling well.
don't make it.
I don't know if I can make it. I told them I couldn't. I can try to
Okay,
change my schedule.
it's-
I'd like to try, but
What, I didn't receive an RSVP, did you?
I didn't receive anything. Well, we probably would have gone.
probably, I did get an invitation, but I.
Okay,
I
because
couldn't
there
make
wasn't
it.
an RSVP on here, so I was
No.
curious.
You don't need the RSVP.
Okay.
Just show up.
Just show up, okay,
So
thank
it's
you.
7 p.m. at the Hillview.
Yes.
Let's see what I can do.
As far as the administrative report, I'll be very quick. We have recently received a mailing regarding the MASC-MASS 2013 Joint Conference. So what I attached for you was the registration information about this conference to be held in Hyannis on November 6th through the 9th. There is a significant reduction to the registration rate if we register prior to July 15th. It's over $100. So if you are interested, we'll be happy to help facilitate the registration process through the superintendent's office, but it would be great if we know by June 24th. And there's a copy of a newsletter from MOAC, the Massachusetts Organization of Educational Collaboratives, also attached. And the name of this paper is called Introducing the Next Generation of Educational Collaboratives, and it describes how collaboratives will be restructuring over the course of this summer going into the next school year. So a copy of that is attached. We have a new Middlesex District Attorney, so I included a copy of her letter of introduction to superintendents across the state, so you could take a look at what she had to say. And on the back of that letter is a listing of all of the support personnel that provide services through the DA's office. And finally, we had discussions previously when Mr. Venezia was elected as the legislative representative for the school committee around the presentation of the legislative bulletin. So I wanted to show committee members, I think you do receive
We
this
do.
at home.
Yeah.
We do.
Okay, I'm not looking for a report tonight, I just wanted to have a conversation about when these come in, should I put these on the agenda for you to?
It's up to the chair.
I'd like to, I think it'd be good.
Well, that means I'll have to read it.
Yeah.
So, all right, okay.
So I'll make
Any-
sure it's included in the packet
Yep.
in the future.
If there's nothing
for
interesting, don't
review.
force a report,
Okay,
but if
all
you
right.
see something interesting on there, you can.
Okay.
The current one is just budgetary
Yeah.
anyway, it's chapter
Right,
70
right,
and circuit
exactly.
breaker, and it's nothing else.
Right.
That's in
So going forward, I will make sure it's included in the school committee packet.
I had one question for you. When will the new school resource officer start? Will that be July 1st or?
Very good question. On Tuesday, the 19th of June, I will be meeting with the chief of police, and I believe he will have a couple of candidates
Okay.
for us to interview.
Mhm.
And from there, he and I will make a recommendation of moving an officer forward. It's being posted internally only.
And is there a plan laid out, there's a plan laid out for exactly what that resource
Yes.
officer is going to do and?
I have that put together for the June 24th
Okay.
school committee agenda. I felt that this agenda was full,
Right.
but it's a 4-page document that you'll have a chance to
Okay.
take a look at prior to the next school committee meeting.
And we should mention that we were going to have a reception tonight for Michael Connolly,
Oh.
but because of the agenda, we're going to have that on the 24th.
That's
It
right.
was
Of
moved.
June.
That's why you didn't see anything in your packet about it.
What time will that start? 6 o'clock?
6:15.
6:15?
Just a short amount
Here,
of time.
just here, right?
Just here, some cookies and water.
Cookies.
I don't know
and
what we'll
water.
have. I'm just
Cookies and water.
Some
Does that
refreshments.
sound delicious?
One of them is allowed under the
Yeah,
a la
one's
carte
allowed, one's
regulations,
not.
and the other is not.
Right. Okay. Our next meeting is the 24th.
the 24th.
Anything else?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. You have a second?
Second.
All's in favor?
Aye.
Good night.